very solemn, very. I'm getting some feedback here.
Yeah, there's an echo. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Tonight, on this 11th anniversary of September 11th, we have been in the studio going over information for, the good part of the afternoon, early afternoon, for, I'd say, the last 6-7 hours. And information from before, how America was before September 11th, the day of September 11th, and what has happened afterwards. And
certainly 9/11 was a defining moment in American history.
Yes, it was.
And, here's, of course, if you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, that's HomelandSecurityUS.com, and take a look at the trailer, I guess, the summary for our program tonight. In deference to, and with all respect to the victims of 9/11, their families, the victims who are continuing to be victims today, those suffering emotional and physical trauma and problems today from 9/11. We have to be responsible in our investigation, in our inquiries, in our research, but not at the expense of the truth.
Right.
And we are searching the truth wherever it might lead and to whomever it might lead. In tonight's program, for the next 3 hours, we want to address this, and we've prepared for 3 hours worth. Actually, we've probably got material here for 3 days worth.
Yeah, we could do a 12-hour show if we wanted to right now.
But, folks, we'd like to invite you to participate in this program as we go through the events leading up to 9/11, the events of 9/11, and the events that followed.
Yeah, and we'll take your opinions, your theories, or
your
what
thoughts,
you think happened.
That's right.
But first, we're going to go through at least a good hour of information. I think we'll open the phone lines at the second hour.
Yes, that would be the best. And please, keep, if you can, let's keep to the topic of 9/11, keep to the topic, while we will entertain all theories, all possibilities, we would like to keep it short, brief, concise, and if you can do that for us, we would really appreciate that. And of course, we invite you to come on into the interactive chat room that we have associated with Blog Talk Radio. If you click on HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the website or click on the link there to take you to Blog Talk. We've got the link to the chat room there. And also, thanks to the Christians United Broadcasting Network. That's Christians United Broadcasting Network. We're being broadcast tonight in high def. And before we get into the actual show tonight, I just want to say tomorrow night, Henry Groover and Steve Quayle, 9 to 12.
Yeah.
Please don't miss that show as well. And that's all I've got. And
before we
got other things.
Before we get into the information and what the show's about, we're going to say a prayer. And actually, this prayer came to us from a friend of the show, Angie. I will say your name and let everybody know you wrote this.
Angie, I want to thank you very much for that prayer.
Yeah, and she also sent some music that goes along with this, but for reasons of copyright, we can't play this music on the show. So
the bigger we get, the bigger targets we are, and of course they're watching. So any type of infringement could possibly take us off, and we don't want to do that. So, but this prayer was done by Angie with I read it. I've got to tell you, it hit me right square between the shoulder blades. It really did. So, Joe, go ahead and let's take a moment here and pay our respects to the victims and their families of 9/11, and for all of us here.
Yeah. Lord, in agreement, we come to you tonight with heavy hearts and minds for those affected directly or indirectly by the atrocities of evil which rock the very core of our nation. We ask you to be ever present in their lives as well as ours, giving us peace which surpasses all understanding, divine strength, and heavenly healing for those who are still hurting from this tragic event. We declare as one, you are Lord of this nation, you are sovereign, and you do reign here in America. As we carry on with the assignments you place before us, we ask you to keep our path straight and our feet firm in all goodness which flows from heaven's throne. Help us, Lord, in our time of weakness. Adorn us with exponential grace and mercy so we are able to love others who reject your truth. Align our hearts and minds to Jesus. We give you all glory and honor and praise for the majestic Master you are, and declare your word to be performed over this nation. May the bride of Christ arise in the shining sunlight in the darkness. We ask all this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
And that was a wonderful prayer, Angie. Thank you very much.
You know, and that's so important because we need guidance. We need that divine guidance in order to accomplish what our objectives are. And
she also added a scripture in here, and a couple scriptures. I'm just going to read this one.
Sure.
And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And that is the case. Romans 8, chapter 8, verse 28.
Yeah, and all things do work for the good. And, you know, we are in a battle. As I said back in 2005, I believe it was, when I was on Canadian Broadcasting Network, their 60 Minutes version, where I said, look, we're in the battle between good and evil. How little I knew at the time, the good versus the evil, the weight of the evil, the power of the good. And you know, it's just the more I see, the less I understand. I mean, no, I should say this: the more I see, the more I realize there's just so much more to find out, to learn, and to understand. So that said, we've got a pretty structured. Yeah, we're going to lay this out. I happen to be in court this morning, and you know, that's kind of the gold standard in my estimation. When you testify in court, you testify to the best of your knowledge, and you testify to the truth. Well, that's the gold standard that we're going to apply to this program. We are going to bring in evidence as if this were a courtroom. Yeah. We are going to display evidence. We're going to show inconsistencies. And we're not going to make wild, reckless accusations. No. Everything is going to be done very responsibly.
And I'll start off by saying this. In my opinion, 9/11 was carried out as I'm going to redefine or regurgitate something I heard today was said in a good way, which makes it resonate with me. And too many times do I generalize and say the government. Well, it's not the whole government. Criminal elements of the government, criminal implants of the New World Order, central banking, international globalists that we talk about, this group of people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, David Rockefeller, Dick Cheney, the people behind the curtain, if you will, pulling the strings. These people are some of the people that I believe helped get this thing passed through, this thing meaning 9/11, get 9/11, the attacks, to go the way they did. Not only do I believe that they just let it happen, I believe they planned it, played a hand in helping it get, as bad as it was.
All right.
And
so you're actually naming names
I will back
here.
Yes, and those names, the PNAC document, and we're going to get into that. We're going to start by before 9/11, what we saw, what was released, what was published, and by who. And first, I think many people don't or might not be familiar with Bill Cooper. He was a radio talk show host, and he was around in September or in 2001 broadcasting. On June 28th of 2001, he broadcast a show predicting 9/11.
Right.
And he lays it out exactly, what happened. And so I'm going to play this audio clip.
Okay, but now
if you want to do this first.
Before you do, let me just say this. And folks understand this. This is why we're doing this show today. In part, of course, for the victims But this is why. Where we are today, again, is we're in a large part today we are here because of 9/11. And where we are today, there's a trend in American governance whereby dissent is criminalized and is categorized as pathological, and dissenters are censored. They're silenced or declared unfit for society. Governmental authorities at all levels have made it abundantly clear that they want no one questioning their authority. And to do so means that you are a terrorist by definition. And for those who do not take to the streets to express their opinions, their beliefs, rows of riot police, clad in jackboots, military vests, and helmets, holding batons, stun guns, assault rifles, and sometimes even grenade launchers, if you do choose to take to the streets, they're there. And in today's America, that's not the America that I know. That's not the America that our founders intended, and that's certainly not the America that my father fought for in World War II, my grandfather fought for in World War I, and my descendants fought for in the founding of this country. And this is why we're doing this. So go ahead and let's play the prophetic clip from Bill Cooper.
And I just want to warn everybody, there is a curse word that we would consider, it's not too bad. We'll play it on air. It's just here we go.
Yeah, it's uncensored.
Bill Cooper from
the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years and can't find him. Some doofus jerk-off reporter with a camera crew waltzes right into his hideout and interviews him. So why do all these fools believe this charade? That a CNN reporter and his little camera crew can do with all the money and all the assets and all the eavesdropping and all the intelligence and all the satellites and all the undercover operatives in the world can never do. It's because they're not trying. They don't want to. Osama bin Laden is their creation, and he is serving them well. I mean, is this some kind of incredible joke that people are so stupid they'll fall for this? And now we're being bombarded with messages that Osama bin Laden is planning to attack the United States of America and Israel. Let me tell you something. If he's an enemy of Israel and the Mossad can't find him, then this thing is the biggest joke that you ever heard of in your life. And I'm telling you, be prepared for a major attack. But it won't be Osama bin Laden. It will be those behind the New World Order who once again want to take the guns and the freedom away from the American people, because we're the only ones left in the world who can oppose the destruction of freedom in the world and then the implementation of a one-world totalitarian socialist government, and that is the goal. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it. Another social illusion, social engineering project to change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people of the world, and especially the United States, to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government. I wonder what Osama bin Laden's targets are supposed to be. And if they don't, if this doesn't materialize in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it will eventually materialize, because they haven't succeeded in getting the guns out of the hands of the American people, nor have they succeeded in taking our freedoms away. In fact, there's been a great awakening in this country and a big backlash against these Marxist, communist, puke-faced, lying, subversive, Nazi, jackbooted Gestapo thugs that is gaining momentum. And so I can tell you with a certainty, they must do something terrible in order to stop this backlash and regain the sympathy of the mass herds of sheeple out there. And supposedly, we're not the only nation searching for Osama bin Laden. So the vast economic resources, the vast technological resources, the vast personnel resources, the vast networks and intricate web spun over all these years by the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA can't find Osama bin Laden, but CNN can? Bullshit. What a crying shame. How in the world could this country of all nations breed such a dumbed down, unthinking, illiterate, uneducated, stupid, ignorant population?
Wow.
And that's a quick break. Well, it's coming back from a commercial.
Oh, okay.
And this is his tune he plays.
Hello? Anybody home? Or have you all just had a total migration of your brain power? You know what I'm talking about out there. And you know me, folks. I only care about the truth, period. The truth. And it's about time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth. Well, you see, the government knows they can't pull another Waco. They got to try and get us to do something to justify what they want to do. Something stupid so that they could actually declare martial law and start rounding people up. Should always be prepared for any emergency. Oh, I was telling people to get prepared and stock up on 2 years of food storage and water and guns and ammunition and everything 8 years ago. Remember, we must have the moral high ground. So we have to wait for them to do something that justifies acting. Whoever fires the first shot loses. I've said that since 1989. I've been telling people that, and it's the truth. And if they fire the first shot, and the militia moves against them legitimately and lawfully to restore constitutional Republican government, and they bring the military against us, the entire American population will support us. But if we fall into these traps, forget it, it's all over. Revolution, you never know what the outcome of a revolution will be. But a restoration has something different. We all know what the outcome is going to be. We know what the goal is, to restore constitutional Republican government, to do away with the excesses in government, to arrest those who have subverted this country and destroyed it, and hold them until they can be tried by a jury of their peers as the Constitution dictates, and find out if they're innocent or guilty. And if they're guilty, hang them. They're trying to instigate the American people to rise up against the government to justify changing the entire character of this nation and bring about one world totalitarian socialist government. That's what they're doing.
Interesting comments. That was 5 months before 9/11.
Yeah,
rather prophetic in terms of now Bill Cooper. I honestly, I got to tell you, at the time, I was not a fan of Bill Cooper.
Yeah,
I have to tell you, but you know,
I didn't know
words were at the time. No.
Yeah, see, I didn't know him. I was not paying attention to politics and radio. But either way,
yeah, we look, we got to get past the people and look at the message.
Right. He named Osama bin Laden as the person they were going to blame a major attack on the United States on, as an attack that is unprecedented in scale. It's the biggest terrorist attack in the history of America. And not only did he say that, he said if it didn't materialize in a few weeks, it wouldn't be far after that. And he said that the goal would be a one-world, totalitarian, socialist, Nazi jackbooted style government system. And what is, and what has been taking place in this country?
Well,
we have been pushed towards a one-world, Nazi-like, totalitarian police state system.
That's right.
And it's not going to get any better. And 9/11 was the catalyst that got all this going. The DHS, the TSA, all these, extremism, the war on terror. 9/11 has cost over 1 million lives throughout Afghanistan, Iraq, all the places that we went to war, justifying it by 9/11. But we will show you tonight and let you hear it from their own words, people like Dick Cheney saying there was no evidence. They never connected Osama bin Laden to 9/11.
Right, and
they never
now
connected
for the longest
Iraq
time,
to 9/11.
Osama bin Laden was not. This is a fact. We of course, everyone knows that Osama bin Laden was not named by the FBI as a suspect or complicit in 9/11. At least not right afterwards, and in fact through. For a number of years, okay, and that's there were questions about that, and I'm not exactly certain, or I don't feel comfortable with the responses by the FBI about that. But yet, militarily speaking, he was the number one suspect and number one target.
Right. Now, in our opinion, and I think it's safe to say our opinion, whether no matter who carried this out, this was a false flag attack on America because
all right, now we have to be very careful.
We can prove that it could have been prevented. Not only that, it should have been prevented, and whether the official story of how it was carried out is true, that was
okay.
At the very least.
Let's back up here, okay? Because let's not get off on the wrong foot.
Well, I'm saying the false flags attacks have been used as a tactic by the American government or the evil interest inside the American government to justify war before 9/11.
Right, but when you say false flag, people have a tendency to believe that this is orchestrated and facilitated and conducted by members of our own government against the people of the United States.
Right, a criminal aspect of our own government.
Okay, so
members of our own government with bigger allegiances at hand, who are working against, in David Rockefeller's words, the best interest of the United States in a group.
Then, if you say that, if it is your contention and your assertion that this was a false flag operation with people inside the government that did this, then it is your responsibility to produce evidence to support that. In other words, you've got to say, okay, here's exhibit A, B, C, and D. This is why I'm saying that, because that's a huge indictment against the government of the United States.
Well, it's not the government. It is people, certain people in the government.
All right. Now, okay, fine. But now we do know, and here's my thinking on this, or my belief on this, after research and investigation. This goes back into the 70s, even further back than that, but it really began in earnest in the 1970s. When I say this, I mean this complicity, this merging of the corporate structure with various elements of the government back into the 70s. Don't forget, folks, the bin Laden family had ties with, way back in the 70s, with, again, the Saudis, and bin Laden family had ties with the Bush family, with the Bush administration, but they also had ties as far back as Nixon, and at the same time as Nixon was president. They don't forget the BCCI scandal, which occurred back in the 70s. All of this is tied together. This 9/11, and this did not happen overnight. There are international players involved in this. So let's not just isolate it to a small group of people.
Well, in theory, it is a small group of people, like you said.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry.
International.
It's international in scope, but it's limited in
correct. Correct.
I understand that.
I mean, even George Bush, I'm still not convinced he knew that was going to happen. Could I say that for Cheney? I don't think so. But just my opinion.
We've we go back and look at Zapata. For example, 1976, James Bath. He was involved with the CIA. He was friends with Senator Lloyd Bentsen. Folks, these names are old. I mean, this stuff goes back, like I said, into the 70s. He served in the Texas Air National Guard. He was a friend of George W. Bush. He was a duck hunter with James Baker III, who was a close friend of George H.W. or George Herbert Walker Bush. Now, well, how does James Bath fit into all this? Well, James Bath and Salam bin Laden. Salam bin Laden appointed Bath as his U.S. business representative here in the United States, involved in various oil ventures. Now, we're not going to go through and dissect all of the oil ventures.
No.
But a lot of this is about oil. A lot of this is about the Caspian Sea interests. A lot of this is about the Silk Road Caucus. And folks, write that down and look that up. And this even to a minor extent involves, remember the Hunt brothers, the silver attempted cornering of the silver market back in 1978, William Herbert Hunt and Nelson Bunker Hunt. There's some information that I've traced back to the Hunt brothers on this. And again, you think, okay, what does all this have to do with 9/11? Well, all these people were players that were setting the stage, and everything that they had done, kind of like the ripple effect. There are a lot of people that had their hands in the corporate fascist type of operation. So, it's definitely complex.
Yes, it is. And some of the things.
And by the way, one more thing. I want to just break the tension a little bit and say I'd like to say hello to Keith Hansen. Keith Hansen has a great radio program on WGUF every Saturday from 12 to 1. I just want to say hello to Keith, as a listener out of Naples, Florida. God bless you, Keith. You're doing a great job. What a fantastic program you had on Saturday. Keith, thanks for being there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a warrior for the truth, and God bless you, my friend.
Yes, he's a good man.
But anyway, and he brought something up about the Second Gulf War, which we'll get into here in a little bit, about the theory on currency being the motive for the Second Gulf War. And again, all of this leads up to the events of today. I have, but I haven't studied the currency aspect, Keith, and perhaps you can enlighten me here when we get to that topic, because again, I've got a notebook full of notes that I refer to, and it's got charts and arrows pointing every which way. But
okay.
But anyway, go ahead, buddy.
We're going to start with PNAC. PNAC was the project for a New American Century.
Oh, one more thing, please don't tell. Look, there are some people out there, and I know that we're all at different levels of knowledge here. We mentioned PNAC. Yes. People might say yawn. Okay, I know about PNAC.
I have a clip to go along that briefly explains who was involved in PNAC and what it was.
So, I mean, if we're going too slow for you, please understand that there are people out there that never heard of PNAC, that never heard of Building 7, that never heard. Some of our listeners have not heard of Building 7, have not heard of PNAC, have not heard of any of this. So please have patience as we go along.
Yeah, and we are talking about a subject here that if you try to call into any mainstream radio show and debate, even mildly debate anybody about this, you will be rejected fiercely.
Keith Hansen hung up on me? No, I'm just kidding.
There are a few.
All right.
But even ones who a lot of people trust.
That's right.
Have their mouths shut when it comes to this. And, you can choose to do that, especially, we don't have all the answers. We don't know who did it exactly.
No, we
don't know why. I mean, we do know why.
Find out. We can search for it, right?
Right, but we can put the pieces together like we're going to do tonight.
That's right.
And put them together and show you. Now, PNAC, here's a brief clip on
how long is this clip?
Paul Wolfowitz, 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
All right.
PNAC and 9/11. And this just explains what the project for the New American Century was and what their goals were. And it should be coming up any second here.
Apparently we're a little slow in the uptake here.
Actually, it's playing, and I got no...
There we go.
After me. I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly...
When George W. Bush took office in 2000, he brought with him Vice President Dick Cheney, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, and Deputy Secretary for Defense Paul Wolfowitz, all of whom had served together previously in the administrations of Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Paul Wolfowitz, in particular, had long been recognized as the intellectual force behind a radical neoconservative fringe of the Republican Party. For years, Wolfowitz had been advancing the idea that the United States should reconsider its commitments to international treaties, international law, and multilateral organizations such as the United Nations. A radical plan for American military domination first surfaced during the administration of George H.W. Bush. In 1992, Paul Wolfowitz, working in the Department of Defense, was asked to write the first draft of a new national security strategy, a document entitled the Defense Planning Guidance. The most controversial elements of what would later come to be known as the Wolfowitz Doctrine were that the United States should dramatically increase defense spending, that it should be willing to take preemptive military action, and that it should be willing to use military force unilaterally, with or without allies. This new reliance on military force was necessary, according to Wolfowitz, to prevent the emergence of any future or potential rivals to American power, and to secure access to vital resources, especially Persian Gulf oil. Out of power during the Clinton presidency, Wolfowitz and his colleagues affiliated themselves with a number of influential conservative think tanks. In 2000, they would craft yet another proposed national security strategy, this one published by a right-wing think tank calling itself the Project for the New American Century. At its core, the document revived the Wolfowitz Doctrine. It called on the United States to increase the military budget by up to $100 billion, to deny other nations the use of outer space, and to adopt a more aggressive and unilateral foreign policy that would allow the United States to act offensively and preemptively in the world. The elimination of states like Iraq figured prominently in this grand vision. But even these hardline conservatives knew that the Wolfowitz Doctrine was likely too radical to win the support of the foreign policy establishment, their own Republican Party, and the American people. In their defining document, written in September of 2000, a full year before 9/11, they acknowledged that the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent, in their own chilling words, some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. 1 year later, that event would arrive.
And there you have a brief history of PNAC, its players, and what their goals were. And if you missed the end there, their agenda was the transition to this new state, this new defense, super defense state.
That's
right. And they said that this would not be able to take place in a fast-paced motion absent a catalyzing and catastrophic event like a new Pearl Harbor. Kind of like how we see the Obama advisors now saying the only way Obama can reconnect with his base or with the American people is to have another Oklahoma City or a new Pearl Harbor, as they have quoted.
And love him or hate him, that's right. Love him or hate him. Rush Limbaugh had said words mean things. Now, when you, Joe, say the Obama associates are saying, look, he needs what were the words?
He needs well, the first one was the first aide or the first advisor said, yeah, he needs it. Bill Clinton reconnected with the people through Oklahoma.
Right.
Now, Obama needs something like a new Oklahoma City to reconnect with the people.
Okay,
and
so
in the second one, I think it was even more blatant because the guy said that he didn't think Obama could win re-election without some kind of
that. And that's what gave Bill Clinton a bounce. That's correct. These are now if we would present this in court, for example, if we would use this as an example of we're presenting evidence here in court, and it's very difficult to do this via radio and even via video, but this would speak to motive. And don't forget, back in 1995, now people have a tendency to wall off life before and after 9/11, and I understand that, kind of like the Kennedy assassination, pre-Kennedy assassination, post. But that said, I believe that as Limbaugh says, words mean things. So when you say something like that, and you are in a position of power, that should be a very big red flag, and you could take that into court as part of a prima facie case for, hey, is there complicity here or intended complicity? And so this is what we have. This is why we're so careful in the next 50 days. What's going to happen in the next 50 days, or even 60 days, or the days between the election and the inauguration of either Obama or Romney or whoever. So go on.
Right. Now, so we have President Bush II get elected in 2000.
George W. Bush, that's correct.
And without getting into, we'll get into the Carlyle Group and the Bush connections to the Osama bin Laden family.
Right. We're going to kind of skip around just a tad here.
We're going to get into 9/11. The day of 9/11, there was flight controllers suspected about 8:25 a.m. that. No, this is from Flight 11. I'm sorry. 4 planes were hijacked on September 11th.
That's right.
2 hit the World Trade Center towers, each one, and both towers collapsed within the first tower within.
I think it was 48
the second
minutes.
tower collapsed first, and then the north tower was the last to collapse. And then a lot of people don't know that the third Trade Center building collapsed also that day.
World Trade Center Building 7.
Building 7. Now, if I was going to go to court on any evidence with 9/11, Building 7 would probably be my number 1 or number 2 piece of evidence.
I agree with that, because Building 7, and folks, you have to understand, look at the layout of Ground Zero at the time of 9/11. Look where the buildings were situated. Building 7 was.
Yeah, I got a picture.
It was pretty far away.
We're going to see if we can do this so people can see.
Individuals on the high def channel.
Now,
a photograph is being held up, and you can see the approximate locations of the buildings.
Yeah, and you can look up, and Building 7 was a block away, from the other Trade Center towers.
A city block, right.
And World Trade Center Building 6 and Building 5 were in between 1 and 2 and Building 7, And Building 6 and 5, which were smaller, much smaller, and had the buildings collapse literally right on top of them, their structures still stood, even with the fire and everything.
So you've got the 2 big towers coming down on Buildings 5 and 6.
Yeah, and 1 and 2 on the other side for the
and 5 and 6, the buildings maintained their basic structural integrity. So in other words, you had this collapse of the first tower, the collapse of the second tower on the WTC 5, at WTC 6, and don't forget, folks, this is a complex of buildings in this block and a half area, roughly, or about a block and a half area, and now Building 7 was somewhat removed from the initial point of impact or impacts, and somewhat removed from the jettison, the debris that was jettisoned from the building being struck, as well as the shrapnel and debris coming down from the collapse of the towers.
Yeah. So that anomaly, we're going to get into more of the Building 7.
Just keep Building 7 in the back of your mind.
Of steel, but the first 2 buildings, the World Trade Center, the main buildings, were hit. And then the Pentagon was hit by Flight 77, and then Flight 11 crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Now, I'm going to start here. This is another big piece of information. NORAD. NORAD is our
North American Air Defense.
Yes, air defense system. And from September 2000 to June 2001, 67 planes were steered off course. All 67 times the air defense system worked as they should, and interceptors were launched. This happened on numerous occasions, and it was consistent. They were consistent with their response times. But on September 11th, Dick Cheney was running a series of war games in the northeastern portion of the United States. The drills included hijacking scenarios where commercial jets were hijacked.
That's right.
Flown into buildings. At the same time, Cheney had arranged for a drill involving a bio attack on New York. This resulted in FEMA setting up a command post on Pier 29 in New York on September 10th. Now, if you remember, there is a clip on ABC Morning News. We don't have it queued up, but I think it was ABC where they were interviewing one of the FEMA commanders, and he said, well, we actually got here Monday night. September 11th was like today, on a Tuesday.
That's right.
And they were planning to do a series of drills. And these drills were scheduled and rescheduled. War games, they're called. Okay? Now, the FAA, NORAD, and NEADS, these are people who were involved as are simulations on. The FAA has computer screens, shows which flights are going where, and there were blimps, and there's a lot of confusion from this. And we're going to get into some of the air traffic control.
Right. Now, folks, as Joe said, there were war games, and we use that in quotations. Mock drills involving the very command structure that was designated to watch and to protect the northeast corridor of flight traffic.
Now think about this.
Before you say that, to give you an example too, and I know you don't have this. Remember Payne Stewart, the golfer, whose jet went up and he went unconscious.
That's what happened. That was one of the flights that was of the 67 flights that was intercepted when.
I didn't believe you had that. Okay.
Yeah.
And that does come into it. The golfer who went up and was flying his jet and went off course. They intercepted his flight very quickly, as opposed to 9/11, which that was pre 9/11. And
right.
Now we're talking about the day of 9/11.
So go ahead. Read you an article about the NORAD. The Pentagon says September 11 interceptors flew too far, too slow, and too late. Now this was from December of 2003, and it says it happens all the time when a small private plane enters a 23-mile restricted ring around the U.S. Capitol. Two F-16s interceptors immediately launched from Andrews Air Force Base, just 10 miles away. In a similar episode, F-16 Falcons, on a 15-minute strip alert, was airborne from Andrews just 11 minutes after being notified by NORAD.
So what is that saying? In other words...
They're going back here and saying that these are well-practiced routines with more than 4,500 aircraft continuously sharing U.S. airspace, and that since 9/11, they say they've revamped their NORAD FAA system. But this was already This was already connected. They were already connected. NORAD and the FAA were connected, and there was an issue.
And you can see this on the movie Flight 93. If you watch that movie, there is some dialogue between the FAA and NORAD, and there was confusion presented in that movie Flight 93. But go on.
People were on that from the FAA were asking if this was a drill or if this was real after the buildings had already hit the plane or the towers, and
planes hit the buildings.
Yeah,
go on.
and so the flight controllers at 8:25 a.m. found out that Flight 11 from Boston Logan's Airport had been hijacked, but NORAD knew, but they didn't notify the FAA until 8:40 on Flight 11. So that's a 15-minute delay in the notification of the flight being hijacked. But on 9/11, you have 4 flights fly off course and strike buildings, major, are some of our most important buildings in the United States. 3 of them did. The 4th one went down, and NORAD and the response was nowhere to be found. This is completely unheard of. And you look at the history, the 67 times, the 1 year prior to that, flights flew off course for more than, X amount of minutes. Planes instantly were there all 67 times, without fail.
This was supposed to be an anomaly, so you've got at least 4. Now, folks, remember this number, at least 4, because there's possibly more than 4, but at least 4 planes that went off course in each city, but especially Washington, D.C. You've got a 23-mile corridor around that city where any plane that enters that corridor is in deep trouble. All right.
Yeah.
They will be intercepted by NORAD planes. It didn't happen on 9/11. New York City has the same type. Many major cities have this, but specifically on 9/11, Washington as well as New York had these areas of concern that where NORAD could have responded, and they did not respond.
Yeah, and out of these hijackers, we all know that the mainstream news reports it's 19 hijackers from
15 were from Saudi Arabia. Right.
And they have here, there's evidence void from these hijackers. There is no video of any of the 19 hijackers at any of the 3 originating airports of the 4 flights have ever been made public, except for a video allegedly showing hijackers of Flight 77.
That's correct.
They say also that there are at least 6 hijackers since that have turned up alive. And you can look up mainstream news on this because there are, I don't know the number if it's risen now, but there are some that are still alive, apparently.
Now, okay, folks, when I first heard that, I figured, okay, there's a mistake because these Arab names are not only difficult to pronounce, but they're difficult to track because there's variations. There's numerous variations, and I'll tell you, you pull up a database on one of these names, and you will get because we do work fraud cases on Arab names, and there are so many variations. I can understand where somebody might say, well, that person's still alive. Perhaps that person is, but does that mean that it's the hijacker? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. However, now again, this alone does not mean anything, but when combined with other evidence, gives one pause to cause. So we've got people, and the other thing too is and I'm sorry, but within the Muslim religion, there is it does allow the lying for gain, for the larger purpose of Islamic takeover, but I don't want to get off track here. But go on.
Yeah, and I'm going to back up and read this hijacking scenario. They say the attack plan by flying from remote airports and going far out of the way, the attacks planners exposed their plan to almost certain ruin had the air defense system operated normally.
That's right.
The originating airport of Flights 11 and 175 was Boston Logan instead of several of the airports near New York City. This created about 40 minutes of exposure to interception for each flight. Flight 77 flew to the Midwest before turning around and returning to Washington, D.C., was airborne for an hour and 23 minutes before attacking the Pentagon, and it flew not only did it fly into the Pentagon, allegedly, it came down in this corkscrew turn that pilots say it's almost impossible for good pilots to make a turn like this.
Right.
And these are people who were told that by the people who they took classes at these pilot training schools in Florida. As Keith Hansen said, he interviewed one of the flight controllers or one of the owners of the flight schools down there.
Right.
Owners or operators. And this is not the same person, but talking about one of the other hijackers, the same kind of person said, this guy couldn't even fly a Cessna, let alone a 747.
And now to add my own personal bit of knowledge into this, my stepson had gone to Embry-Riddle University for a short period of time. Believe me, it was cost prohibitive. Now, that said,
Embry-Riddle was a place where they did train also. They did fly.
That's right.
Do test flights there also.
Right. And I did talk to one of the instructors down at Embry-Riddle when I was down there in 2005. And I questioned the instructor. It just happened to be, it wasn't planned. It just happened to be purely accidental. And I asked the instructor, look, did you have any dealings with any of these alleged 19 hijackers? The answer was yes, one. He did give me the name of that individual. I don't recall the specific name, but he said that as you said, the guy basically washed out of the program, and he could not operate any type of aircraft at all. Now, does that mean that the other three hijackers on whatever plane that might have been, couldn't have done that. No, it doesn't mean that. But again, this is all bits and pieces of the puzzle. And as an aside, in 2005, he said, we have more Muslim Arab hijackers, potentially Muslim Arab flight students than we've had in any time in history.
Yeah.
And they're paying cash for their studies, which is, I mean, when you're talking about a year at Embry-Riddle, you're talking close to $100,000. I mean, it's incredible because flight time is so expensive.
And getting back to why it's so important about NORAD, NORAD was, Cheney was managing multiple war games and terror drills on 9/11 that paralyzed the U.S. Air Force's response.
Right.
And many Americans are still unaware that numerous war games and terror drills were being conducted by several U.S. defense agencies on 9/11 that morning, including one live fly exercise using real planes. The drills included the injection of false radar blimps into the screens of air traffic controllers to intentionally confuse and prevent them from intercepting 3 planes that were hijacked that day, 2 of which dealt a devastating blow to the Twin Towers. It says one of the biggest holes in the Bush administration's argument that they never heard of a plan to fly hijacked jets into landmarks on the East Coast, yet eerily, on 9/11, the military was running a drill of flying hijacked planes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And the coincidence, similar case, is 777. The same tactic was used to carry out the London attacks. In a television interview, Peter Power, the managing director of Vision Consultants, admitted that the morning of 7/7, VC and London police were conducting a counterterrorism exercise involving the bombing of the London Underground subway station, and that ended up happening miraculously the same day. Now, there is a question as to who had control of NORAD while 9/11 happened.
And I want to know
Cheney, that. Apparently, from... I haven't seen actual paperwork of, and I don't know that anybody will, aside from the testimony of let me get this guy's name right. He testified at the 9/11 Commission stating that he was in the bunker with Dick Cheney, and, a guy came in the room and said, "Do the orders still stand?" Do you know the guy's name?
I don't know the gentleman's name, but that is indeed a piece of evidence that certainly can be verified, backed up, and validated, authenticated. Yes. Indeed, that Cheney had at least
for the first time ever
control of 9/11. Now, at what point, when was he given that?
It says
control.
Okay, well, this says for the first time in American history. That it was the first time in American history that the vice president was in direct control of the military agency, NORAD. NORAD was founded in 1957. Generals always had the power to shoot down and intercept hijacked aircraft, but on June 1st, 2001, only 3 months prior to September 11th, Dick Cheney ordered Donald Rumsfeld to allow him to take control of NORAD and the shoot-down procedure, thereby removing any defensive power from the generals so that they could do nothing.
Right. Which is a very significant, and ladies and gentlemen, again, I see some talk in the interactive chat there that, I know Alex Jones had done some exposés on this as well today, and what we're trying to look with all due respect to Mr. Jones, because I've talked to him, I like him, and we get along fine, and we do interact. I've been on a show for those new listeners. So I mean, but our styles are a little bit different. What we are attempting to do is lay out the facts a little bit differently. So please have patience with us, because I know that Alex could run circles around us in terms of the information. But what we're trying to do is methodically lay this out, lay the foundation for this, because and I saw a comment where hey, everyone could see that there's controlled demolitions, and if they can't see that, they're people are ignorant. Well, boy, people have been arguing about that for 11 years.
Yeah.
This is why, that we're trying to do this methodically. We interviewed Richard Gage from the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. This guy, this is what he does. He's an architect, and he's an expert. Well, just because it's obvious doesn't mean it it's the truth, okay? Or it doesn't mean it happened that way, I should say. Just because it's obvious doesn't mean it happened that way. And I know that sounds a little bit shaky. What do you mean by that?
Well, we'll get into the spiel. Yeah. We're going to get into that.
We will get into it, indeed. But I just want to let you know that our methods are different. It's a little bit. We're trying to be a little bit more methodical for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I mean, if that's, I'm not going to apologize for this method, because I think that this is the only way. We have to separate the hyperbole and the rants. Not associating this with Mr. Jones now, but the hyperbole and the accusations from the facts that we can prove. And we're not going to be talking about holograms, jets with being holograms, and
no,
that's not what we're talking about.
What we're trying to do is, obviously, from our beliefs, there is too many anomalies, too many coincidences that point to a one answer, really, and that answer is that there were elements, criminal elements in our government involved in taking down or helping these people take down the targets that they did on 9/11. Now, this agenda...
And that pains me to even think about that.
Yeah, and this was done so we could get the Department of Homeland Security, so we could get the TSA.
Right.
So, I mean, look at history. Look at the series of false flag attacks, the Gulf of Tonkin, an admitted U.S. government false flag attack on itself to justify war with Vietnam. You have World Trade Center bombing 1, the first one in 1993, which had FBI involvement. And there's hundreds of hours of audio tapes with FBI agents and their undercover informant. They had the option to give the guy fake explosives. They had to give the people fake explosives.
And his name is Salem.
Yeah.
Salem.
And they didn't. And
and I was on C-SPAN, ladies and gentlemen, with Dr. Lori Milroy, who wrote the book about the explosion in Flight 93. I appeared on C-SPAN with her back 2006, maybe 05, something like that. And she interviewed people. Not once, not one time. In fact, she wrote the book Bush versus the Beltway. Sent me a copy, a personalized copy of that, and some other. But not once did she acknowledge the fact that the FBI exactly managed Salem this way, to the extent where they provided him with the explosives. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
And the way we kind of put the show together today was based on a few things, and one of them was on this Colbert article I read today, the unanswered questions of 9/11.
And that Colbert is not the Colbert from television,
no.
Okay? And by the way, the structure is very similar to what he did, so go ahead.
Yeah, and he says there are unanswered questions of 9/11 are too numerous to enumerate, but they include why the National Institute of Science and Technology classified the data they used to make their model of the Building 7 collapse, and it says, would knowledge of how NIST believes the building collapsed really jeopardize public safety?
And that's a fair question. Why is it classified? Just like Oklahoma City, why are the tapes from John Doe 2 classified? You've got to go back in history and ask the same thing.
Yeah, and
you're seeing a continuous course of conduct by our public officials, by our safety officials, by the FBI, by the Department of Justice. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you're seeing the continuous course of conduct that states, hey, we are going to hide the evidence from the public. Now,
and
what will this show?
Exactly, and what we have with Building 7, and we're just going to get into the buildings. We know that the planes now hit the buildings. The NORAD stood down pretty much, or was unavailable at that time due to Dick Cheney and his war game drills.
Correct.
But a lot of people don't know 3 skyscrapers fell, and it was the first time in history that any skyscraper fell due to fire.
And by the way, I fault no one for not knowing any of this. And I fault no one for saying, come on, guys, get moving.
It's not allowed to be talked about on the news.
That's right.
And when it is talked about, it's demonizing the people, the 9/11 truth movement.
That's right.
And just because you don't believe the official story doesn't make you a terrorist, as some people might say. But 6 out of the 10 commissioners who wrote the 9/11 report don't believe it and say it's a lie.
That's right.
It's a whitewash, a cover-up. So when people say, this is, junk. It's a bunch of what kind of evidence do they call it? Or circumstantial evidence, and there's no real merit in it.
Right.
Well, there is real evidence, and something we kind of skipped over is the put options, the insider trading that was done days and weeks before the planes hit, and these put options were done on the airlines itself. And what a put option is
betting on a loss.
Yes,
that's
betting
it.
on a loss.
We'll get into that. And of all the things that I'm interested in, we say follow the money. Man, I'll tell you what, to me, this is evidence of profit. Now, profiting on the deaths of the backs of Americans, to me, is not only treasonous. The heck with my opinion. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for grabbing that documentation. Because you want to explain to people now about this, or you want to
put option or financial transactions these were done in the days before the attack that suggests certain individuals used foreknowledge of the attack to reap huge profits. The evidence of insider trading includes huge surges in purchases of put options on stocks of the two airliners used in the attack, United Airlines and American Airlines.
That's right.
Surges in purchases of put options in reinsurance companies expected to pay out billions over losses from the attack. Surges in purchases of put options on stocks of financial services, and huge surge of call options on stocks of weapon manufacturers.
And by the way,
Raytheon,
folks, those put options are not in this book.
No, either is Building 7.
That's right. If you've got a copy of this book, the 9/11 report, put options not mentioned. Building 7 not mentioned.
But to simplify the stock market gains, we'll just use this. Bloomberg News reported that put options on the airline surged to a phenomenal high of 285 times their average daily trading value per day. So 285 times the normal activity is how much put options were. How much betting was going on that these companies would fail.
And think about that. Just think about that for a moment. What are the odds of betting against American Airlines on 9/11? And the put options had specific dates, drop-dead dates, and this did cover 9/11.
Yeah. So you have 2 planes hitting the World Trade Center buildings. You had 1 plane hit the Pentagon, and 1 plane crash.
Right.
And now, by this time, the Pennsylvania crash happens. Both World Trade Center buildings have collapsed. Now, was this a controlled demolition? There are extensive videos, reports of firefighters, first responders, police officers, witnesses stating that there were multiple explosions. There were people coming up from the basement with skin hanging off of them, as one police officer or firefighter talks about in YouTube video. There are several movies about this. I advise everybody, if you don't or are not aware of this, to go look up videos on 9/11 and don't take people's word for it.
Yeah, and
do your own investigations into this, because we're coming from a standpoint of I've pretty much memorized all this stuff over the last 4 years, and some people don't know.
But let me stop you right there, because I was at Ground Zero shortly after this happened,
and
I did talk with a police officer who said that he was in the lobby of the North Tower. I'm sorry, which was the second one hit?
South Tower.
So it would be the North Tower is the first, right?
North Tower was the first one hit, last one to fall. South Tower was the second one hit.
He was in the lobby of the North Tower, and he said it looked like a bomb went off. Now, again, one can say, well, once a plane hits the top of a building, the elevators, stuff comes down with the elevators. No, what he described was something more catastrophic that took place in the first level and the sub-level of the North Tower. Again, this is somebody that was on site on 9/11. And I had asked him, well, what do you think? He said there had to be a secondary explosive device, at least in that area. It could not have been caused. The damage that he witnessed, that you just described, could not have been caused by the aircraft solely by the aircraft hitting the building.
No, and ladies and gentlemen who want information on the science of controlled demolitions, how they look compared to other building collapses, I'm going to post a couple of links into the chat room on other skyscrapers that have burned before and never collapsed. This was the first time in history that buildings collapsed due to fire. And people say, well, jet fuel, burned. That was the reason that these buildings were brought down by a fire.
Okay.
Well, the jet fuel burns at a maximum, I think it's 1,600 degrees at a maximum. And there were temperatures, higher than, I think, 3,000 degrees. Molten metal at the bottom of the pile of the World Trade Center. Molten lava. Fire doesn't do that to metal, okay?
As a matter of fact, when I was there was still molten steel that they were dealing with. And when I say dealing with, they had to make they had to encapsulate that molten steel to keep it away from other parts, the underground. There's a lot of stuff underground in Lower Manhattan, and they had to kind of like wall off this molten steel, if you will.
Right. And we had the two towers, which were basically pulverized. All that was left was dust, which is really, if you watch how the first tower collapsed, it was collapsed properly at first. The top fell down.
That's right.
And meaning there was, once the top started to fall crookedly, it broke off from the bottom of the building. The rest of the building should have stood straight.
Correct.
Somehow, the whole thing imploded into the ground into a pile of dust. Now, before I get into the Building 7, remember, 9/11 was a crime scene. How do you treat a crime scene?
Well,
you secure it.
Yes.
You secure the evidence.
Yes.
What happened to the evidence of 9/11?
I think it went to China, didn't it?
It was immediately removed and destroyed without any scientific checking. NIST admits they did not check for explosives while doing their scientific findings and investigations into what happened.
They didn't check for explosive residue, or any secondary devices. This is after the fact. Now, this is not during the recovery and rescue, or this is not during the rescue operation itself.
Right. And Richard Gage, who is an architect and engineer for 9/11 Truth, he's the founder. We did interview him. Has been working on a theory where he talks about thermite being used, and thermite is a
nanothermite it's
accelerant, really.
Right.
And it can melt through those big steel beams that were used to make the World Trade Center. And what it did, I mean, you could see in the Trade Center that you have metal that is twisted, that is looks like there was charges put on it, cut at an angle, all kinds of different steel. I mean, there was a piece of steel that wrapped around and into a circle and melted to another piece.
And a lot of this can happen. I mean, by itself, you have one of those incidents take place. Okay, fine. You've got a multitude or numerous oddities, anomalies, then you've got an issue to take a look at. Folks, we're late for the top of the hour break. We do have to take this on behalf of the people who have nicely sponsored our show.
And when we come back,
right back,
we're going to get into Building 7, the real smoking gun of 9/11, and a few other smoking guns. Then we're going to start to take your calls, and while we get into the rest of this information. But what I want to take away from the first hour is I wanted to lay out some groundwork of what was going on that day. They had NORAD drills taking place. You had FEMA there for drills. You had the planes fly wildly off course. And we didn't even get into the Pentagon or Building 7. Those are the two smoking guns, as the Pentagon and Building 7. We'll be hitting that now.
Yeah, we're going to be working up to a crescendo.
And more.
Yes, and before we cut into the regular commercials, I want to welcome mindregard.com. That's mindregard.com. Folks, they sent me, they sent us some samples of their product. It's called Nootropic or Neotropic, or nootropic, I guess is the correct pronunciation. Whatever it's called or however you pronounce it, go to mindregard.com. I've got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I've been taking this now for a little over a week, with the exception of just a massive head cold I've got right at the moment. I have to say that this particular this particular supplement, this I don't want to say it's not a drug, it's not a medicine, it's not even a diet medicine or diet supplement. But what it is, it's a nutritional supplement based on a balanced formula of various ingredients to promote healthy cognition, which increase blood flow, and antioxidant support, and also a mood enhancer. It has got a calming effect, and it's also got kind of a focus effect. So it's kind of like, remember that focus factor? It's like that. There's also a combination of Western dietary supplements in this as well. Folks, mindregard.com. It has changed for the better. My cognitive abilities, and believe me, I do need that. And also, there are some other benefits, and I'm not even sure I'm allowed to say this on the air, but it's true. It's actually lowered my blood pressure. It's lowered my need for additional medicine for my type 2 diabetes, and I got to tell you, it's just an amazing. To me, it makes me feel completely different. So I classify myself as a success story. Folks, visit mindregard.com. Go to homelandsecurityus.com. Click on the banner on the right. Take you right to it. Tell them the Hagmann and the Hagmann Report sent you there. Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com, or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
We've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming.
I want to be clear, because I've heard you say this, and I've heard the president say it, but I want you to say it for my listeners, which is that the White House has never argued that Saddam was directly involved in September 11th, correct?
That's correct. We had one report early on from another intelligence service that suggested that the lead hijacker, Mohammed Atta, had met with Iraqi intelligence officials in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And that reporting waxed and waned with a degree of confidence in it and so forth. Has been pretty well knocked down now at this stage. But so we've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming. But that's a separate proposition from the question of whether or not there was some kind of a relationship between the Iraqi government, Iraqi intelligence services, and the al-Qaeda organization.
We also have a history of kind of moving in and out of Pakistan. I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia, and we went to work. And it was President Reagan, in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen, and let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated. They lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest. So we then left Pakistan. We said, okay, fine, you deal with the stingers that we've left all over your country. You deal with the mines that are along the border. And by the way, we don't want to have anything to do with you. In fact, we're sanctioning you. So we stopped dealing with the Pakistani military and with ISI, and we now are making up for a lot of lost time.
Doug Hagmann, one guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Welcome back, folks, to this very special edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on the anniversary of 9/11. This is a special 3-hour program. Thank you very much for staying with us during this time, and thank you for bearing with our methodical attempt to lay out evidence. In the first hour and 10 minutes, we discussed the basic background, the fact that there's no video of any of the 19 hijackers at any of the 3 originating airports of the 4 flights, with the exception of that small, very, very limited blip at the New England airport. We also talked about the fact that at least 6 of the alleged hijackers suddenly are alive, or at least are ostensibly alive, since the attack. None of the 4 flight crews radioed ATC about hijackings in progress. None of them.
Also,
NORAD, they didn't have a chance. NORAD, basically had stand-down orders and drills going on, or stand-down orders according to people who speculate about what Cheney was talking about with that gentleman who testified at the 9/11 Commission. But they were in control of NORAD. Right.
And we missed one part of the pre-9/11. What happened the day before 9/11 on September 10th?
Well, why did, in fact, Donald Rumsfeld announce a new war on September 10th, 2001? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, what was the reason for the $2.3 trillion missing dollars, which the Pentagon had lost up to that point, kind of like a MF Global in a sense? Hey, where'd the $2.3 trillion go? Now, I know that subsequent to that, many people have come out and said, well, that money has been that was just a bookkeeping error to the tune of 2.3 trillion. When the day before 9/11 at the Pentagon, Dick Cheney announced that. Donald Rumsfeld announced that.
Yeah,
it's that's Rumsfeld's war on bureaucracy. Is what he was referring to.
Yes, he said it is a matter of life and death. There is $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon, and the Budget Analysis Office was the one handling the anomaly of that money missing, and coincidentally, they were the part of the Pentagon that was hit by the plane.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second as well. And then you've got multiple failures. A failure to report, according to NORAD's timeline, the FAA reported errant airlines after delays that were just beyond explainable, despite the fact that 2 airlines, that being Flights 11 and 175, were headed for New York City. No planes were scrambled from nearby LaGuardia or from Langley, which typically they would be, despite having received formal notification of the hijacking, the first hijacking at 8:38. No interceptors were scrambled from Air Andrews to protect the nearby Pentagon until after it was hit. That almost an hour later, well, basically an hour later to the minute. And once in the air, the interceptors only flew very, very tiny fractions at their top speeds. Bottom line, they did not appear to have the intent of intercepting the airliners. 2 F-15s were scrambled from Otis Air Force Base to chase down Flight 11. They flew at an average of 447 miles an hour. That's about a quarter of their top speed.
Yeah.
And they could have done better than that. And then we got into Building 7, which basically imploded. But we just touched on that. We didn't get into the evidence about that, but we touched on that.
Well, it's and this is we're getting to the point now where we're going to be talking about the implosion of Building 7 and the Pentagon. And this is real touchy for a lot of Americans because a lot of Americans refuse to even look at this evidence. Yeah. And if you approach them with the evidence, with the details, they still won't look at it or won't believe it. It is this cognitive dissonance, normalcy bias.
Normalcy bias is at play here.
Yeah, and we have shown, foreknowledge. And you told me a story about something you heard where a child in Brooklyn was in school.
Right. Well, not in Brooklyn, I believe. Well, it could have been Brooklyn or New Jersey. And folks, you can find this on the internet. I do have notes on it. I just didn't bring them for the show this evening. Where, in fact, I did verify the authenticity of the story. Where it was an young Arab child who said, "You see those buildings over there?" To a teacher, "You see the buildings over there," meaning the 2 twin towers. They're not going to be here next week. Or so I'm paraphrasing now. And when I first heard about that, and this was as I was being enlightened, as I was coming out of my shell, my thought pattern of, hey, this America could not possibly be involved in this or have any foreknowledge of this. I was able to verify, authenticate that. Now, the name of that, in fact, the student who said that, it's my understanding that that student and his family have left the country, conveniently. Now, again, that to me should be one heck of a piece of evidence that would support some level of foreknowledge. If a child overheard that or would state that to a teacher, overhearing that, then others would in fact know. So anyway, we covered that in the first hour, kind of laid a lot of groundwork, talked about the environment, if you will.
Yeah.
And where we are today because of 9/11. So that was the first hour. So let's get into some really specific stuff now.
Now this is something that a lot of people, especially in the media, you think that this would be a huge story. Yet I talked to somebody, a very informed person today, who was not aware of Building 7 or that it had collapsed. But at 5:20 p.m. on 9/11, the Solomon Brothers building, a 47-story-foot skyscraper, fell.
It's a huge building. I mean, it's a huge building.
Yeah, it was. It would have been one of the biggest buildings, I think, or the biggest skyscraper in 40 states or something like that. But
47 stories is pretty tall.
Yeah, and what happened at 5:20, in exactly the similar fashion as all controlled demolitions, if you watch a video of Building 7 collapsing, and even the guy on CBS was talking about it as it was happening, saying it looks eerily similar to controlled demolition. How those are carried out. It had many signatures of a controlled demolition. Now, Building 7 was the headquarters for the mayor's emergency bunker. It was also the FCC or SEC.
It contained a lot of financial information.
CIA.
That's right.
Yeah. I have the list here. I'll find it. But
now, this again, the WTC-7, 47 stories, steel framed, fire protected, high rise.
Yep.
It was located about, if you want to make a mental picture of this, it was about a football field in length or in distance away from the North Tower. It was never hit by an aircraft. It was, contrary to media reports, it was not hit by flying debris.
I mean, it could have been hit by flying debris, but
of significance. No, let me back up and be more specific in a courtroom type atmosphere. It was not hit by, contrary to belief, it was not hit by the falling debris from the first or second tower.
Correct.
So the North Tower, it did not strike Building 7.
And this says 3 skyscrapers were totally destroyed with structural collapse primarily due to fires, given as the explanation. Fires and bombings have never before or since caused the steel frame building to collapse. Building 7 experienced a total collapse, allegedly because of fires, when no steel frame building before or since has ever collapsed, totally or even partially due to fires. Now, I know this was written a while ago, but I've seen a building partially collapse with the top couple stories of a building that was on fire for about 4 days fall, but the rest of the structure still remained. But it was standing, it was perfectly free fall, or not perfect free fall, almost perfect free fall, right onto itself with only minor damage to the Verizon and post office buildings, only 60 feet on either side of it.
Which, again, now, folks, understand this.
I mean, this
World Trade Center has the support columns. If you look at the building, if you can look at a box, you've got support columns on the outside, support columns on the inside. There are 24 different columns that held this building up, and
a huge amount of support on the inside to bring this building down. The only way to do this, the only way for this to happen in the manner that it did, is for a controlled demolition. There is absolutely, I don't care what the government says, the evidence is in the video in itself, in the condition of the building before and when it comes down. You'll notice if you watch the video, the penthouse, the inside core collapses first. The rest of the building structure falls on top of that and leaves a pile of rubble where virtually nothing is damaged. A best case scenario in a controlled demolition is that it falls in its own footprint and nothing else is damaged. So, anyway, this building contained the $15 million emergency command center for the mayor, but instead of using it, Giuliani evacuated his team to a makeshift command center as soon as the attack started. The emergency center was destroyed along with the rest of the building, even though it was constructed as a bomb-hardened shelter. The remains of Building 7 were rapidly removed, and the steel recycled, evidently without any on-site and only extremely limited off-site examination. The rapid disposal operation proceeded despite the fact that no one was believed buried in the rubble, and the tidy rubble pile was not blocking adjacent roads. And this was on BBC News. They announced that Build Trade number 7, the Solomon Brothers building, collapsed while the building was still standing in the background. For 20 minutes, they said this building had collapsed.
Right, and there are YouTube videos on YouTube that you can access where there's a female reporter reporting of the building's collapse. Again, as Joe said, 20 minutes prior to its actual collapse. And the bottom line here with this building, the only way to describe it coming down, only a very carefully engineered series of explosions or incendiary type devices could cause this steel-framed building to collapse in upon itself and land mostly within its own footprint. Now, demolition companies are paid big dollars to make sure that this does happen. And as you mentioned earlier, buildings 60 feet away were not touched by any of the debris. You also have the owner of the building at the time saying about the...
On PBS, yeah.
On PBS saying, let's pull it. And, of course, that was the owner of the World Trade Center.
Yeah, a couple weeks after 9/11, Larry Silverstein went on an interview on PBS. He was the owner of the World Trade Center towers, and he said he saw that the building was
not structurally sound, and
that's what he said. So he made the decision to pull it. That was his statement.
Right.
To pull it. Now, those are, the word pool is a word used in demolition. Pool, I'm not familiar with controlled demolition, so I couldn't tell you the other word.
Well,
but
it's got a specific meaning for that
right.
environment.
And he later tries to explain it away by stating that he meant to pull the firefighters out of it, but there were no firefighters in the building. So that statement, take what you want out of it, but I suggest people do some additional research on Larry Silverstein, because he not only got, he renewed his 99-year lease the summer of 2001.
Right.
He purchased the World Trade Center 7 for $386 million and $861 million for the rest of the. I'm sorry, that was a settlement. In February 2002, his company won a settlement of $861 million, and not only that, he filed dual insurance claims because he said these were two unrelated, separate attacks, and he was awarded the money. Well, I think it was like $7 billion. It
was an incredible amount of money, but the fact of the matter is, as owner of the building, and this is something that we're familiar with because we're involved in insurance claim work in that respect, and fraud work. It would be like driving your car into two other cars, striking two other cars, we'll say. Something I've done, actually. And filing two separate claims, having two separate claims, and being awarded twice for the same accident, which is just ridiculous.
And it says, it goes on to say that they question this. This decision was never explained. The decision to pull or to, if that was his decision. Either way, it was never explained by the Keenan Commission or the 9/11 Commission. The conflicting report of FEMA investigators was also never explained.
Right. Now, Building 7 that collapsed, by the way, free fall acceleration over 2 seconds at a distance of more than 100 feet, equal to at least 8 stories.
Yeah, they said you could drop, it dropped into its own footprint, and you could have dropped a brick, I think they say. And it would only have been like a half a second. The building fell almost at free fall speed. What was it? 2/3 of the building fell at free fall speed. 6.5 seconds for a 47-foot skyscraper to collapse into its own footprint that only had minor damage on a couple floors of fire. And you can go. I mean, people have not seen it. Please go look up the video of videos of Building 7 of the collapse. Do the research and decide for yourself, because this is one of the smoking guns, and the media won't talk about Building 7. The 9/11 Commission wouldn't talk about Building 7. Donald Rumsfeld on Mancow being interviewed said he didn't know what Building 7 was. I don't know if you guys remember that. I find that very hard to believe, but that was the case. And this is where they, this was the headquarters for the CIA in New York. This was the FBI, and they had all kinds of government agencies in Building 7. This was a very well put together building. It was not your, cheap skyscrapers, if there is such a thing. There are skyscrapers in Brazil that burned for much longer. I'm sure we're not made of the same materials, high-grade materials that the U.S. makes their buildings out of. That never collapsed.
Right, and there's a couple of, aside from the building itself, the interior, what was inside the building, as you mentioned, is important. And I do want to mention this, inside that building, in addition to other areas within the Pentagon, there was information related to Able Danger.
Yeah.
Folks, have you heard about Able Danger?
We're going to get into a little bit of that.
Able Danger is a keystone, a cornerstone of 9/11. If you haven't heard about, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about Able Danger. And when we talk about 9/11, there's very little discussed about Able Danger. What is Able Danger? Well, it was an investigation that actually identified various threats, various people, various hijackers. In fact, 4 of the hijackers, I believe, in fact, 4 were identified years in advance of 9/11 by this Able Danger investigation.
Yeah.
Now, some of that, about 2.5 or 3 terabytes worth of information. Think about that in 2001 when you're talking terabytes was destroyed. The official documentation was destroyed by this collapse. So you've got right now we're limiting this discussion to WTC1, WTC2, and WTC7, 3 buildings all brought down during the course of the day. The first 2 in the morning, and of course World Trade Center 7 at 5:20 in the evening. World Trade Center 2, by the way, NIST, they admitted that they studied World Trade Center 7. Mm-hmm. They created a report, right? Then they had to revise their position because they failed to explain how the fall of Building 7 could be compatible with some sort of fire-induced process. It just didn't happen that way. So NIST was caught in a lie. They had to revise their report. And so, again, if we were looking for bits and pieces of evidence, solid evidence to show you and say, look, this is a reason to reopen this investigation, that's one of them. So we're trying to bring everyone up to speed here. And I know people are at different levels of knowledge.
But basically, my point is so far is we have numerous anomalies of government not doing what they're supposed to be doing, pre-knowledge of something going to happen. There was the mayor of Detroit or San Francisco was told not to board a plane that morning.
Right. And this is stuff you folks heard. And a lot, look, Snopes will say, oh, that is just nonsense. That's all urban legend. No, it's not. We're skipping over a lot of the things that you've likely heard and can verify on your own. We're concentrating on things that perhaps you know.
And if not know. I mean, if you don't know, please do so.
In fact, what we're going to do, why don't we do this? Why don't we open the phone lines now as we progress into the continued? Is that all right?
I mean, yeah, we have the Pentagon and Flight 11 left to, talk about and really
line up on the phone lines. We're going to open up the phone lines now. Line up on the phone lines. We're going to get to them as they come in, but we're going to start the Pentagon and the.
The Pentagon is one of the, in my opinion, like I said, Building 7 and the Pentagon, one of the 2 biggest smoking guns. If you look, they're at the building before the structure collapsed, after they say the plane hit. There's a period of time, I'm not sure how long it was, a couple minutes, 10 minutes. Well, there's a hole about 10 feet by 15 feet wide. Okay?
Correct.
A 757 is approximately 124.5 feet long.
Well, regardless
wide,
of what the statistics were.
44 feet high with the tail. And what we see in the initial damage done to the Pentagon is nothing resembling a plane crash. Now, there is a video only aired once. I think it was by CNN. And the reporter on scene, when they go to him, they ask, what is it like over there? And the reporter says, it looks like the Pentagon has been hit, but in my estimation, and from what I can tell, nothing shows that it was hit by a aircraft. There was no debris, no major pieces of wing, tail, and if you look at the pictures of the Pentagon before the structure collapsed, there's no way that this plane fits through, or there would be much bigger damage. There's no damage to the lawn, and a lot of inconsistencies with this. And if you take some of these facts into consideration, the central impact hole has a diameter only slightly larger than a 757 fuselage, one of the engines, or the front of the plane.
The whole body of the plane, actually, but the front of the plane is what...
The damage on the right side of the central hole is difficult to reconcile with the impact of an intact starboard engine of a 757. The single hole through the C-ring of the building suggests a single-engine attack plane. Now, if you look at the Pentagon from an aerial view, you'll see that there are several layers inside, and each layer is reinforced by 18.5, I think it was feet thick concrete and steel reinforced walls.
Right. Now, this is the part of the Pentagon that had undergone renovation.
Yeah. And the flight path was something we covered. It went on some kind of downward corkscrew turn and in a descending manner that some pilots, professional pilots, veteran pilots say that they couldn't even do it. Now, there are, like I said, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth out there. There's also a group called Pilots for 9/11 Truth that talk about this and other anomalies. And the Pentagon, as we said, was hitting the Budget Analysis Office, and that was where Donald Rumsfeld, they were working on the missing $2.3 trillion
Go figure.
of the that Donald Rumsfeld announced the day before. Now, the regions in the Pentagon that were punctured were restricted to the first and second floor. The puncture on the second floor was about 18 feet wide and extended to the top floor, about 26 feet above the ground. The region punctures on the first floor was about 96 feet wide. Now, they say that the 757 is 124 feet wide and 44 feet high. So I guess this hole could make sense. These holes could make sense if there were no wings or tail on
Where's
the plane.
the debris?
Right.
Where's the debris?
There's no black boxes. There's no engines, no bodies, nothing. And the broken windows, if you go look at even after the structure of the Pentagon collapsed, you can see very minimal fire damage. Not like at World Trade Center. There was in fact, a picture. You can see an open book on a very narrow part of the ground that was still left on the second floor.
And
Not
I
even singed.
And I think, by the way, if those watching us on the Christians United Broadcasting Network in high def, I think. Thank you, Troy. I do believe that we have
a picture,
or not live, but we have footage of the Pentagon.
That's a picture of the Pentagon before the remaining structure fell down, and it says. It goes on to say the damage to the surroundings. Many reports held the jetliner hit the ground short of the building wall, and that the ground absorbed much of the plane's kinetic energy. And this goes on to say if that were true, it might help explain the damage to the building being much more limited than expected. But such accounts seem to be contradicted by photographs showing an apparently undisturbed lawn with undisturbed objects close to the wall. And a lot of people, and I'm one included, I'm not sure if it was a plane, if it was the plane, they say. Was it a plane or a missile? There's only been one video released of that out of, I think, 82 that were confiscated immediately by the FBI and CIA and were not released to the public and never have been. Now, we see every year on the anniversary hundreds of clips of the planes hitting the towers. If it is so terrible to watch, and that's their excuse for not releasing it, too graphic, or, they don't want to put the families through any more heartache than they've already been through. Why not release the videos of what hit the Pentagon? Why the secrecy? Why the lack of transparency with, especially seeing as how they had this whole narrative already set up? You'd think that they would, give you as much evidence, they'd want you to see the flight hit the Pentagon. But since there's so many people who were so asleep, this awoke, really, I'd say a majority of the people, the 9/11. What happened with 9/11 politically awakened more people than anything in my day and age since I've been alive that I've seen, because of the anomalies, because of the lies. The Bush investigation, the Bush administration fought against an investigation into 9/11. They said, no, we're not going to have an investigation. Then they said, all right, and who do they appoint? Henry Kissinger to run this investigation. And he had to recuse himself because of his interest with the Saudis and their oil businesses that he was involved in.
Well, yeah, let's stick to the Pentagon. Now, we've got, you say that there's really, you're hard-pressed to understand that a plane hit the Pentagon.
I'm thinking
we've got multiple witnesses. I'm looking at a list of witnesses that includes Steve Anderson.
They all work for USA Today, I think.
Okay. Plus, we've got air traffic control records in tandem with that.
But what I wanted to say was, I'm not saying it couldn't have been a plane. How do we know it wasn't? I'm just saying it's not that plane, the 757. What if it wasn't a smaller?
Then you've got the okay. So where's the other plane? Now you're starting to now. Okay,
these are unanswered questions. But they don't show us a plane hitting the Pentagon.
Okay,
they have videos of it, right?
Right. Look, I understand that. Omar Campo says it was a passenger plane. I think it was an American Airways plane. I was cutting the grass, and it came in screaming over my head. I felt the impact. The whole ground shook. We got numerous reports saying it was a plane. Yeah, I'm troubled by the fact that there's no
and you can see,
debris.
I mean, you see this whole picture I'm showing you right here, which is accessible to anybody. Go search pictures of Pentagon before... or right after plane hits 9/11.
Right. So what? You can do that. You can find.
But can a Boeing
numerous eyewitness
757 fit into that hole without leaving the debris? Obviously, from this picture, it definitely didn't hit the ground because you have construction materials that are in the way of in between. The plane, if it hit the ground, would have had to hit these first before it hit the Pentagon. Right? I mean, looking at this picture. Well. Okay, and that's the picture I had up. The plane would have had to hit these before. I mean, it's a mystery to me. I don't know what hit the Pentagon because they have not released any information.
Now that is a problem for me. Why has there been a gag order on the information with respect to the Pentagon? Why haven't they, 11 years after? What in the world could explain the secrecy behind releasing the footage? It's not in deference for the family.
And you'd think you'd want to, like I said, if you're painting up this big lie, this big narrative, Osama bin Laden, the boogeyman, from, half a world away, mastermind this brilliant plan to crash 4 planes into different buildings in America, knowing that we were running simultaneous air drills to where we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves, and hitting very key locations to different buildings, like with Building 7 falling, even though it was not hit by a plane, holding the records, the Enron records that were destroyed in the World Trade Center building. Or that's at least the excuse the government gives. But anyway...
and just to be clear on this, just so everyone is clear... 125 Pentagon workers were killed in the Pentagon. The aircraft attack penetrated the western facade of the newly remodeled Wedge number 1, and again, Pentagon. The fragments of it went into Wedge 2, which that part of the building was awaiting renovation. Now. The holes were punctured in the exterior wall of the C ring, and of course there are 5 rings in the Pentagon, A, B, C, D, E, and this went through. The plane went through 3 rings, the A, B, and C rings. Smoke, water, and fire damaged about 2 million of the building's 3.8 million square feet of space. 400,000 square feet was demolished as part. Or in this particular incident. So,
and this article out of Activist Post says the 9/11 Commission report is 571-page lie that omits World Trade Center Building 7. Documents reveal that the government warned the 9/11 Commission against getting to the bottom of the September 11th terror attacks in a letter signed by Attorney General John Ashcroft, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, and CIA Director George Tenet. Additionally, Bush and Cheney refused to appear before the commission. What they did, and we're moving into, I skipped the paragraph, but basically the 9/11 Commission, during the 9/11 Commission and investigation, everybody was asked to testify. Condoleezza Rice contradicted herself and said something to the effect of, we didn't have any knowledge or were not warned about the possibilities of the Pentagon or the World Trade Center being used as targets. Only the months before, they had a report, and they had the World Trade Centers in a target. It was a report that was released to all the George Bush and his staff, and she was one of those people. And I think George Bush even said nobody in our government could have envisioned flying planes into buildings. But yes, that's what they were running drills on. But the paragraph I skipped about the Pentagon. A Boeing 757 with a wingspan of 125 feet left a hole approximately 16 feet wide. Not one photo of a plane hitting the Pentagon, one of the most secure and video-monitored buildings in the world, has been released. Army specialist April Gallup, who was injured by the Pentagon explosion and saw the hole that it caused, saw no evidence that a plane hit the building. Preliminary CNN reports also found no evidence that a plane had hit the Pentagon, and that's what I was referring to when I talked about the reporter stating that he saw no evidence. I'll post this link in the chat room. It is from Activist Post. It was released today, and it says, "You Can't Handle 9/11 Truth." I think that's the title of the article.
Okay.
But I think we should take some calls, and we have to get into means, motive, and opportunity. What did the Taliban and Al-Qaeda we created have to gain by attacking us? Notoriety? Did they want the biggest military in the world coming after them? I think it was something different. What are we seeing? Where was the opportunity? Who's making the money? Who had the means to carry out this attack? And if we go back to the list of people who were involved in PNAC, and this is my assertion here, these people had the most to gain. The Michael Chertoffs, the Dick Cheney, Halliburton,
look at
Michael Chernoff, Rapiscan, Paul Wolfowitz, et cetera, Henry Kissinger. These people had much more to gain than any Islamic extremist, I think.
But yet, before we go on to that, one thing we haven't touched on is Flight 93. That went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And the only thing I'm going to say about this, the only thing that really bothers me about this,
is the memorial.
The memorial project. If you look at, and we reported on this right after it started. It's if you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com and look up Flight 93 Memorial, it takes you to not only a website, but it discusses our crescent, or it discusses the crescent, the Islamic crescent and the architects involved in the building of this memorial. The fact of the matter is, this memorial is in honor to Islam. Now you might think, Doug's lost his senses here. Well, look, it's already been pointed out. We've done this. The winning design chosen to memorialize the heroes, the victims of Flight 93, is in fact a red-shaped crescent that looks like an Islamic crescent. In fact, to such a point where it's even got the star in the center. This is called the Crescent of Embrace. Yeah. And its designer is Paul Murdoch Architects. And it's interesting because we investigated this at the time. This was a couple of years ago. People had, we had questioned this. No one would talk to us about it. We had looked into Paul Murdoch Architects. There's very little known about this company. I've got to tell you, that's my biggest area of concern. If you look at the memorial, it is a memorial to Islam, and it's clear to me that this is a plan, that this was in fact planned this way.
And one thing I forgot to mention, because we're doing all this in one show, is in the rubble of 9/11, the Twin Towers, apparently police were able to find 2 passports of the hijackers, unscathed. They couldn't find the black boxes, couldn't find people.
Right.
Couldn't find anything.
I've seen this.
They found 2 whole passports on the ground. We've
seen this odd things happen.
Yeah.
I mean, things happen. We've seen.
Really? I mean, of all things you're going to find, the papers are destroyed.
Thing.
I mean, you get a 2 fully intact passports that magically fly out of go through this huge impact at the World Trade Center, explode. It comes out of wherever the guy had it, and it lands on the street, and all the dust and rubble falling on top of it. Someone was able to find two of them, two different hijackers' passports.
But they also found the identification of one person on the 92nd floor of the World Trade Center with identification intact. I mean, they didn't find her. They found her glasses, and they found her identification. It happens. I mean, it's odd, sure. Now, if it happens twice, and it did, once in New York City and the second time in Shanksville, then you have to start questioning the veracity of the accounts. Is this a coincidence, or in fact, could this have happened, or could this have been being set up? In fact, I believe that it could very well be set up to look that way. So, I mean, to me, that's more of a. I don't put much stock into it.
Well, I think we should take some calls. We got a couple minutes before the top of the hour.
Let's do it.
And if you want to...
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't have my board up here. We'll take you... we will take you by hold time here. Should I know this or no?
That is our friend from... Yeah, that's Patriot John.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought I knew you. John, welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good, sir. Very solid.
Fantastic job so far. You guys are doing great.
John, don't blow smoke up our, you know what.
No, seriously, you guys are probably leaving a lot of listeners hungry for more, and they're going to go find out for themselves.
I hope they do.
Which is, of course, the ultimate goal.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about all this, John?
Well, first, let me say that the name you were looking for was then Secretary of Transportation Norman Mineta.
Yes,
was the one that was testifying that Cheney was running things and an Air Force.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Air Force kid came in and said the plane is so far out. Do the orders still stand? Yeah, that was Norman Mineta.
And he said, when the guy asked, the plane said the plane is 10 minutes out. Do the orders still stand? His exact words were, Cheney whipped his neck around with a look and said, "Did I say anything different?" That's how the story goes. And he testified to that in front of the 9/11 Commission.
He also said something that stuck with me. He laid out the progression of events that one event is an occurrence, two of the same event is a pattern, three of the same event is a program.
How fitting in this case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Joe, I'm going to get to what I called for here in a minute, but Joe, you were talking about before who benefits. You guys as investigators, I'm sure, know the Latin phrase "qui bono."
Correct.
Who benefits?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's pretty obvious who has benefited from all of this. It certainly wasn't the American people.
Well, let's talk about who benefited, John. I mean, seriously, who has benefited from this carnage, from this massive tragedy? I even hesitate to say a tragedy. I guess it's a tragedy for our rights, but who does benefit, John?
Well, whoever you want to identify them as, the powers that be, are the ones that benefited.
Well, we can
and there were some private individuals that benefited. The Secretary of Homeland Security before Butch.
Michael Chertoff.
Yeah,
Michael Chertoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney, Halliburton, and
Halliburton. Well, the entire military-industrial complex.
Right.
Correct.
Has benefited from this day, I should say.
Yeah.
John, I know you as a reasonable guy. Okay, you're a very reasonable man. You have reasonable sensibilities. I certainly would like to have you on a jury. Foreknowledge, government foreknowledge, yes or no?
This is something that I've been fighting with for a while.
Right.
There's two lines of thought. There's let it happen on purpose and made it happen on purpose. I am not and have not ever been prepared to say that the government made it happen. However, evidence points to at least foreknowledge and allowing this to happen.
I'm with you there.
Okay, I don't think the government does anything by themselves. I think the first World Trade Center bombing is a good example. Oklahoma City, they facilitate these occurrences and allow them to take place to the extent that that they want it to occur. And it's my belief that at bare minimum they allowed it to happen.
At bare minimum. And I think that's important to point out because, see, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, well, all right, in addition to who benefits, I mean, we are here today with all of the oppressive laws, the statutes, the drones flying overhead.
NDAA.
Yeah, all of this.
TSA.
As a direct result of 9/11. I mean, it could have happened through a series of smaller events, I'm sure, but not as rapidly as it did.
Well, the reigning school of thought in my circles is the New World Order was supposed to have America conquered and subdued and have their system set up by the year 2000, by the turn of the millennium.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I think some of us give ourselves way too much credit in this regard, but it didn't happen. On their time frame, and it still hasn't happened yet. I think it's very possible that they had to have such a massive, overwhelming, paralyzing event to scare the people so bad that they will accept nearly anything, and guess what? They have.
Yeah.
So,
as Bill Cooper said in the beginning of that video, the New World Order and the people behind it will not stop until they have taken the guns out of the hands of the American people and implemented their one world totalitarian socialist regime.
That's right.
Well, the path to that has certainly been laid. Very straight, very narrow, and it's coming to the end in my estimation.
Yeah, I think we're in the end stages here.
Anyway, to the reason I called, it's after the top of the hour. Do you want to take a break? I can hold.
Yeah, hold on. Hold that thought, my friend. We are going to be right back. Folks, you're listening to Doug and Joe Hagmann, the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, heard every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. This is a special program. This is, in fact, the anniversary of 9/11. This is a live broadcast. Today is September 11th, 2012, 11 years after that tragic day. Stay with us, folks, and we'll be right back after this. Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the Internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Aileta Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Look, I'm at the start of my administration. One nice thing about the situation I find myself in is that I will be held accountable. I've got 4 years.
You're going to know quickly how people feel about what's happening.
That's exactly right. And a year from now, I think people are going to see that we're starting to make some progress, but there's still going to be some pain out there. If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth Squad specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood. KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
And welcome back, folks, to this hour, this final hour of our 9/11 tribute, this 9/11 investigation, this fact-finding mission. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, as heard live every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. Starting October 1st, we're going to be going 8 to 11, 3-hour program, getting more in depth, bringing to you more guests. Tomorrow night, don't forget, 9 to midnight. That's tomorrow night, only 9 to midnight. Steve Quayle with Henry Groover. It's going to be a phenomenal program tomorrow night. And then on Thursday, we have Larry Grathwohl to discuss his take on the upcoming elections and Obama's, Jarrett's communist connections. We do have John on hold, but before we get back to John, I just want to say that the tragic events of 9/11, it changed many things. It forever altered the New York skyline. Every time I go across the GW Bridge and look to my right, I fail to see the two skyscrapers that I was used to seeing. 9/11 changed the way we look at otherwise benign things, such as jets, aircrafts, tall buildings, and box cutters even, as well as those smiling Saudi sheiks. Yes, we look at those people differently as well. The people that we thought who were our allies, the Al-Qaeda attacks in the span of ostensible Al-Qaeda attacks in one morning vaporized our sense of security while living peacefully and freely and happily in what has been had been at one time the fortress that was America. Now they changed the way we travel, how we let others travel here, and of course, federalized airport security. These are the results of this. They permanently, just permanently mushroomed the Washington bureaucracy, the security apparatus, its police powers, the powers being used currently against us. This is why we're talking about 9/11 today. As well as the victims, it's the result of 9/11s. And look, this is perhaps one of the most commercially exploited events in the history of America. You know, few Americans really know what happened on 9/11, and few Americans knew on 9/11 that in Afghanistan, there were resources to exploit. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't hawk books on this program, but if you want to really get an eye-opening about what 9/11 did for oil interests, for example, for certain Saudi, certain Afghani interests and big corporations, I do recommend this book. It's been out for a number of years. It's called Crude Politics by Paul Sperry. This will give you some background if you're watching this on high def via HomelandSecurityUS.com, compliments of the Christian United Broadcasting Network. You can see this book. I'm holding it up. It is indeed a great read. I have many sections of this bookmarked. It gives you the cast of characters from Condoleezza Rice to George Bush to Halliburton to Wendy Chamberlain, people that you never heard about, Musharraf, of course you know, Richard Armitage, and all the usual cast of characters. That said, I want to welcome back Joe to the program. Joe?
Yeah, glad to be back. And I don't know one thing if we mentioned or not. Did you mention about George Bush? All flights were grounded after 9/11.
That's right, and we have to get into the exodus of the Saudis royals.
Except for one. One family was allowed to fly out of America when all other flights were grounded, and George Bush flew the Osama bin Laden family out, I think, on 18 flights.
There were a number of flights that took place during the week of 9/11, originating in Florida, and actually originating in various spots throughout the country, first in Florida, then in California, then in Arizona, all going to Kentucky, and then out through Washington. I believe it was Washington.
Yeah.
And here's the sad fact. The FBI they were not allowed by executive order, by the order of George W. Bush, they were not allowed to interview, speak with, or otherwise interrogate or talk with any of the members of those plane rides.
And that coincides with Able Danger, and they were stopped in investigating and capturing bin Laden. They were stopped from investigating.
There was a bin Laden family that was taken.
The Able Danger were investigating the terrorists. The 9/11 Commission says carried out these attacks, directly investigating these people, saying they think they were going to attack, and they were stopped. They were told to stand down. One FBI agent was even moved off of his assignment and put into the Trade Center towers, and was his first day of work was September 11th.
Yeah, John O'Neill.
He was killed.
And I have to say one more thing before we go back to John. Mr. O'Neill was really, what a shame. He was. Folks, definitely do some research on John O'Neill and his position with respect to his warnings, his prior warnings. But the flights out of America, if you don't think that things are still going on today, they are. One family that is close to the bin Laden family left their home in Florida. We referenced this earlier this year. They left their home in a hurry, such a hurry that they left food on the stove, plates on the table, and it was a family, I think, of 8, and they left the country suddenly and inexplicably. This does relate to the events of 9/11, at least at its periphery, because of their relationship to the bin Laden family. John, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, guys.
Guys,
go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, John, we have a few other people on hold that we want to get to. So if you could keep it brief, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. absolutely. You guys know, but your listeners probably don't. I'm a firefighter. I have been for off and on for probably the last 35 years. And I'm here to tell you, fire did not bring down any one of those three buildings. Jet fuel is made of highly refined kerosene. Kerosene burns in an open-air environment, which is what it was doing that day, at a temperature of roughly 1,800 degrees. You add in the furnishings in the office, you might add maybe another 100, 150 degrees temperature, nowhere near what was what would be capable of bringing down that building through melted steel or what they termed thermal expansion. I can say that with 100% certainty. I know what fire does, and I know for a fact that those buildings did not come down as a result of fire.
So, John, what do you think brought them down?
To me, it's obvious a controlled demolition.
All right.
To be very brief, the North Tower, I think it was the second hit that took the plane into the corner, that basically took out that entire corner. It would have been sensible for that building to break off and fall at the wound in the building and leave the rest standing, but which it actually started to do. When you look at slow motion footage of the collapse, it actually started right in that corner, and then it should have continued to tip over like it did, and just fall to the street, leaving the vast majority of the rest of the building standing.
Right.
But of course, it didn't.
So in your experience, and we've talked to many firefighters off air who quietly say, look, this is not the story. I mean, the official narrative is not the correct story, and I'm amazed by the number of firefighters who have not spoken up because they lost so many on that day. But I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I do understand it.
Yeah, I do too. And if you would indulge me for just one more moment,
sure.
I have a personal story about 9/11. I've never shared this on air with anyone. A few days after 9/11, at the time I was living in South Carolina, and a few days after 9/11, I think it was probably the immediate weekend following, I was in a local gas station in the morning. It was a Sunday morning, getting a cup of coffee, and I had on an old fire department T-shirt that I had from when I was still living up here, and it had the logo on the back, and it was unmistakably a fire department T-shirt. And I'm standing there waiting in line to pay for my coffee, and a guy who I've never seen before or since came up and asked me, "Are you a firefighter?" I said, "Yeah." Actually, at the time, I was in retirement. And he shook my hand and said, "Takes a hell of a man to do that job." And paid for my coffee and walked out.
Yeah, how great is that?
I was standing there literally in tears. I had no clue what to say. I honestly didn't. I couldn't do anything but stand there. And I share that because with everything that we talk about on you talk about on your program, I talk about on mine.
Right.
There is still some good left in the world.
Oh, I agree. There's a lot of good left in the world. Yes. And it takes just a gutsy guy or a woman to run into a building that everyone else is running out of. Now, one could make perhaps an argument for insanity, but I mean,
we're all a little bit crazy.
Yeah, and look, for 4 years I did that work as well. California Fire Training School and part of my EMS career, but Got to tell you, man. That's rough work, and I commend all the firefighters and commend you for your work. Yeah. And next hour, when I see you, coffee's on me as well. So.
Thank you. And for everybody out there, I lost 343 brothers that day. Please hug a firefighter.
Good way to end it, my friend. Indeed, John. You take care, and I appreciate you calling in. Wow.
Thanks for the input, John.
Yeah.
No problem, guys.
And
stay safe and God bless. I'll talk to you soon.
All righty. And ladies and gentlemen, that you can find his program on our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Go to our website, link to his Saturday program.
Yeah, Braveheart Radio.
Braveheart Radio.
Just
breaking news here.
Yeah, just before we get back into phone calls, we're going to take a phone call from a 9/11 first responder next. USA and Israel in open feud. White House declines Netanyahu's request to meet with Obama, but announces his appearance on Letterman, even though he told Netanyahu his schedule is full.
Yeah. So here we have a president
and
going on Letterman for the love of Pete that won't meet with Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And I'm getting questioned by people, by idiots, why we have an Israeli flag flying on our website.
Yeah. And not only that, we have in Libya, the U.S. consulate was set on fire. Americans were killed. Also,
U.S. Embassy in Egypt was attacked.
Yeah, and they have torn down their American flag, and they have raised their Al-Qaeda flag up in the air.
Is that a surprise?
Well, see, and this is how this all ties in together. There's a report today that came out that al-Zawahiri's brother wants to make a peace deal with the West. That Al-Qaeda wants a peace deal with the West. We've used Al-Qaeda as a tool against the American people to put in this police state. Now they are being used as fighters of freedom. And if you guys all remember what George Bush said on 9/11, they attacked us because of our freedoms. But we're supposed to believe and back them with our taxpayer dollars as they go around slaughtering Christians after they take over countries through brutality and murder. There was just a video of the Al-Qaeda in Syria executing 20 soldiers loyal to Assad. This is just complete crap what they're doing. They have turned the police state apparatus in on us as they are saying Al-Qaeda is now our friend.
That's right, and this is a direct result of what. I mean, you could follow the trail, follow the breadcrumbs.
So yeah,
from the 70s till now, with 9/11 being a pivotal point in history.
So if 9/11
spawned this,
if 9/11 was carried out by Al-Qaeda to start a war against the United States, why then are we helping Al-Qaeda? Yet there's a law that was just passed and signed by the president stating that they can kill you without trial or evidence if you are even suspected of being involved with Al-Qaeda's associated forces.
That's right.
Just so disgustingly broad, unconstitutional, criminal, and, what more proof do you need?
No, there is none. And on December of 2008, I wrote an article saying that the United States was going to not only abandon but turn against Israel. That's exactly what's happening right now. All right, thank you for holding. We're going to go to Phil. Phil, you're on with Doug and Joe.
Thanks for holding so long, buddy.
Yeah, that's all right. I almost fell asleep on you.
Well, we do provide pillows, blankets, and seat belts just in case. What's up?
Yeah, that's cool. Oh God, I don't even know where to begin.
Phil is a first responder. He is having and has been going through medical problems due to his service at 9/11.
Yes, on Ground Zero there in New York City.
One of the brave men running into the burning buildings.
I mean, my job was I was trying to get people who were. We had a couple of severely injured people on the higher floors, and we were just trying to get people out. I mean, the first tower came down already. I knew it would happen. I had a gut instinct. 8 minutes before it came down, I heard a couple of thuds, and I said, all right, let's get the hell out of here. So I knew it was coming down, and I knew we were in trouble, and I pulled as many people of mine that I could out, you know. And the medical problems didn't start right away. They started years later, except the wheezing started a few months later. And I don't even know where to begin. You know, what do you touch? What do you discuss? How the World Trade Center Health Commission is treating us? How Dr. Jeffrey Hunter has been withholding out the cancer diagnoses? How legislators have been holding out for getting us the money we deserve? Many of us lost our livelihoods.
Yeah.
New York City firemen were there. They were paid to be there. There were fire departments throughout the state that were volunteer fire departments and ambulance corps. And the workers' comp funds didn't even go far enough on that.
Phil, being down there that day, being a first responder, what is your belief as to what happened that day and who caused it?
The truth, at this point, the way I see the government going, and for where we are now, we needed that event to get us to where we are now. So I think rogue elements within the government, certainly. I think Bush was a useful idiot in the events leading to 9/11. I would like to see justice done, but I know it's not going to happen. But at least I want to see, for my brothers and sisters, the firemen, the police, the EMTs and paramedics, let them get rewarded, you know, and let them get their stipend and let them get whatever they can, because a lot of us aren't working anymore.
Okay, Phil.
By a miracle of telecommuting, I'm working now for Apple.
Right.
As an iOS.
But Phil, hang on a minute. Let me ask you about the day of 9/11, okay? Let me hit you with some lightning round questions, if you don't mind. First of all, how long were you at Ground Zero?
8 days.
You left your house, went to Ground Zero. 8 days later, you came back. Is that what you're telling me?
Yep.
All right.
I lived on the cruise ship. I showered there. I didn't even want to stay on the cruise ship. To me, a cruise ship is a place to vacation, not to get R&R from the type of duty we were. I'd rather have slept on my sea bag, my trauma bag, which I did the first 3 days. A lot of firefighters I knew personally died.
Okay.
You know, over the years. And I have a funny feeling, you know, I mean, I'll be joining them sooner rather than later, but.
Well, Phil, you've got. Okay, let me ask you. You were doing recovery, or well, actually, it went from rescue to recovery.
Yeah, all I do is treat the diggers basically from cuts, bruises, broken bones. At that point, and we just waited around and waited to transport people to the hospital. At that point, after the first day, there was nobody to rescue.
Right. Now, were you wearing any type of a protective breathing apparatus?
No. We weren't told anything until the second day. At that point, you know, and it was ready. The temperatures were way too high if I was going to be digging and stuff to wear anything.
Right.
You try wearing a respirator while trying to treat a wound or talk to a patient.
Yeah, it's not happening. You're not going to be able to do it. After you were warned, we'll say, or alerted to the fact that there could have been or could be some nasty, toxic
things in the air. I mean, also you got to remember, by the church, they were serving food also. And they had food, okay, and it was open to the air, and the doctor said, even if you were to shower and decontaminate every day, you were still being exposed to it by what you were eating down there. And I said, you know something? You're right, Dr. Burke. I didn't think of that.
Do you?
So even if
Phil, do you? I know that you're physically impaired from 9/11, from your rescue and recovery efforts during those 8 days. What's your diagnosis, if you don't mind sharing?
Reactive airway disease, asthma. I had kidney cancer, which they don't want to touch yet. Let's see. Cardiomyopathy, which may or may not be related, but more genetic, but was certainly exacerbated by the airway.
Okay.
So ultimately, something I was living with for my entire life and living well with became an ultimate nightmare and almost killed me about, 7 months ago?
Do you
required me to have surgery?
Do you have any claims or?
Yeah, I have a great law firm, and my attorney is pretty good.
Okay.
Matt McCulley.
All right.
From Parker Wakeman and Lonzo. Matt McCulley was an NYPD detective. He was one of the smart ones. He didn't stick around. He came down, and then left the scene later that day. And because his job was just as a detective, basically. So.
What's your prognosis, Phil? What's your prognosis?
Let's see. Albuterol twice a day. I have my work Mac has an inhaler there. What else? I have to see a doctor every 3 months. I go to 9/11. I go to Mount Sinai every 6 months. My remaining kidney is in stage 3 of chronic kidney disease. We're watching the creatinine very well with my primary care physician. And I asked him and he says I should see a nephrologist. I said, well, and so I asked him what do you suggest I do. The Mount Sinai people don't want to cover it, And I said, well, I have one kidney. It's not like I gave it away. It was a donation. It was taken by cancer, which was related to her health, and they don't want to cover that even until Dr. Hunter clears up the diagnosis.
All right. So you
got to realize cancer is one of the more rarer cancers too. It's not like lung cancer or any of the others. It's a very rare cancer.
They just announced
1 out of every 1,000 get it. It's 30,000 cases a year.
Except in Lower Manhattan.
They just announced yesterday that they were wrong about the air quality, and there are 50 new or different types of cancers that are caused by the air down there. The air quality down there.
Yeah, kidney cancer is one of them. So it's not a genetic luck of the draw for me. It's obvious.
No.
So now what am I going to do? So I lost 12 years of my work life where I was making good money at an auto group as an internet manager. What am I going to do? I cough a lot. I cough up a lot of phlegm.
Right.
All the time. I work from home, so I can try to isolate myself. I go maybe on one trip every couple of years because of a rich friend. What am I going to do? I mean, what more?
How many others?
I want to serve my.
How many others?
I want to serve my country. I want to get, and this is a fight I want to get into. But at the same time, people say you bidding for gun and country. I mean, I even did one last hurrah in 2010 when Bed-Stuy Volunteer Ambulance Corps was trying to get down to Haiti. I helped organize the flight for them. I helped organize the money, and I even went along. And they were all looking at me saying, "You can't go, Phil." And I said, "Yeah, I'm going." And they said, "You're crazy." And I said, "When have I not been crazy?"
Yeah. Did you go? Did you go?
Yeah, I went to Haiti. I had the stamp in my passport. 3 days later, they were carrying me a mile to a helicopter. And came back home after, 3 days of being in Homestead, in the hospital in Homestead with narrow kidney failure and physical collapse. So, yeah, you could say I'm in bad shape.
Well, Phil, you've got our blessing, our prayers, and our thoughts. We certainly thank you for everything you've done, which doesn't even begin to cover what you're going through right now. But
question to you is, Braveheart Radio, was he a New York City fireman?
New York or Pennsylvania State fireman.
Yeah, I want to hook up with the guy. You give him my phone number and everything?
We can do that. We can do that, Phil.
Yeah. Also, even though I'm working for Apple Computer and still on disability, which is going to be cut in a couple of months, I still struggle day to day to pay my bills.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's rough because I'm sure that a lot of your bills are medically related, are they not?
Well, yeah, definitely. And a lot of copays, a lot of, even with Medicare, it just doesn't help. And then all the times I've been in and out of the hospital, if I don't send the hospital $50 here, $20 here, they'll come and take things from me. You know that.
Yeah, I know that, Phil. Phil, we're going to be talking off air because we can't let you suffer like that. So we're going to connect you. We're going to hook you up with John. In the meantime, I want you to take care. And I just want to say God bless you and thank you for what you've done.
By the way, I do have one announcement. Tomorrow is the beginning of what I call iOS Mania. From 12 to 8:30, I will be getting back-to-back calls with no breaks in between as the new iPhone 5 comes out and other devices, which not allowed to discuss.
Oh, well.
All will be revealed.
Oh, gosh, Phil. Well, thanks for that announcement. Heads up, everybody.
Yeah.
God bless you, my friend.
Thank you for your service, and thanks for calling into the show, Phil. Take care.
All right, we're going to move to Jim right now. We're going to move to Jim.
All right.
Jim, thanks for holding so long with us. You're on with Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Hey, Doug and Joe. This is Jim. I'm watching for Truth Lure. How you doing?
Good, my friend. What's on your mind?
Did you guys know about when the Bin Laden took out September 11th? Why did they let the family go away?
Why did they let him go away? It depends on who you ask, but the bottom line is it was by direct order of the Bush family, who has serious ties with the Bin Laden.
Yeah, the Carlyle Group, the Bush and Obama, or the Bush and Bin Laden. Bin Laden's helped build military bases for America in Saudi Arabia.
Caspian Sea interest. It's all in the book Crude Politics. Is that or did you have some other theory or supposition?
Question. See, I had my first cousin, Jason DeFazio. He worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. He died in the North Tower. And, anytime if there's a murder investigation, wouldn't you want to talk to everybody's family first?
You're doggone right.
Mm-hmm.
And they would not let anybody talk to the Bin Ladens. Even Bush Sr. was grounded from flying, but yet they took all the Bin Laden family. I mean, if there's a major murder, don't they usually investigate the family?
Of course they do.
Yeah,
absolutely they do, and they didn't on this. And
they would use them as almost as a hostage tool or a negotiating tool, saying, "Look, we got your family." If they wanted them that bad, we're not releasing your family to go back to Saudi Arabia until you turn yourself in. But no, they go outside of the rules that they set for us and the rest of the government and fly these people out willingly, we're helping them escape from that.
Yeah, and now were all the attackers on that? See, this is another point that gets me, Mr. Hagmann, is the whole 9/11 thing. They were all from Saudi Arabia, and then I see Bush kissing a Saudi king and Obama bowing down to the Saudi king. I mean, why did we?
Yeah, isn't that something? Why would we? Well, I'll tell you what. It's because of the fact that, hey, Saudi Arabia, they're our ally. Look, you believe what you've been told, comrade. Hey, quit trying to cause trouble here. Just Jim. I'm kidding. Okay. No, you're exactly 100% correct in this. First of all, you're right. In fact, one of the Crude Politics describes there was one plane. You still with me, Jim?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't want you to hang up because I was kidding around with you. Okay. They describe one flight where this there was a flight crew that was allowed to take off, given clearance, special clearance, presidential clearance, that had one little girl on this plane, and from Florida, and was a member of the Bin Laden family. And the Crude Politics describes the statements made by this girl, this privileged little girl that was being allowed, being shuttled in protective custody, more or less. That's what they called it. And the fact that, while people were still being pulled out of the rubble of the Trade Center, and the fact is, the stewardess the flight attendant on this flight, couldn't stop crying because of the fact that she lost quite a few friends. It was the same. In fact, it was one of the same airlines, American Airlines, I believe, that was allowed to fly. She lost her friends that day that she had to fly this Saudi girl, this privileged Saudi girl, out of the country, or to a private Saudi jet parked at one of the airports. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's Harkin Energy. It's George H. Herbert Walker Bush. It's Condoleezza Rice. It's Richard Armitage. These are the people that were making the deals. It's Dick Cheney. It's Zalmay Khalilzad. It's Wendy Chamberlain. It's Christina Rocca. It's Sam Brownback. It's Musharraf. It's Karzai. In Karzai's people. It's Marsica. Jack Marsica. Brent Scrowcroft. All of these people have their hands in this Unical, oil, Harkin Energy, so on and so forth. These are the people that we have to point the blame at for that. I didn't mean to go on a monologue and a diatribe there.
Oh, I like it. No, it's good, because I just wonder, like, how on September 11th, you look in Revelation 9:11, and it even says on that date it's Apollyon, which is called the destroyer number.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't think any of that's coincidence. And folks listening to this program, do you? I mean, and caller, you obviously don't, right? You don't think that's coincidence, do you? I mean, to me, this is. I mean,
for one anomaly to happen, would raise questions, but for so many, not even anomalies, just so many out of the ordinary, completely opposite of the way it should be, things happen that day. Too many to count, too many to go through on this show. We tried in the first 2 hours to say as much as we could, reading from the points we had, and there's still so much.
I thought you were talking about SATCOM, right?
I'm sorry?
SATCOM were they having their game?
That was NORAD, I think.
Yeah, it was
NORAD.
A few agencies, FEMA, NORAD. They were doing drills. The short options put on the put options put on the airline stocks. The people in high power are told not to fly that morning. I mean, all the anomalies that they just don't. When you put it together, it paints a bigger picture. Especially looking at who was in charge, what the.
I know the anomalies, Mr. Hagmann. I mean, like, how about Flight 93? Rumsfeld said we shot the plane in Pennsylvania. You ever heard that on YouTube?
Oh, sure, yes, sure. And I've talked to my quote handler, if you will, responded to the Flight 93 debris field, and there's some serious questions about it being shot down.
I mean, look at the purpose too. The lady that was in charge of that investigation, the first thing she did, she got in the head of the, what do you call it when people work for the Justice Department? Attorney General.
Right.
And she said her first order of business, you know what she did to protect us? She put Tommy Chong in jail for Boggs. The same lady that was involved. Just a little tiny lady. And it was amazing how that catapulted her career. I wish I had her name. I'm just really emotional. September 11th has always been an emotional night with my family, and of course with every American, really.
Have you lost?
He just said he lost his brother.
Okay, that's
cousin.
First cousin.
My family.
Yeah, I'm terribly sorry to hear that. And
back to your program, I just wanted to talk to you because I knew you guys were like one of the best investigators. And I just wanted to make sure that there were bin Ladens that flew out post facto. And anybody that was an investigator, that's the first thing you do with a murder is investigate the family, right? I mean, I'm not an investigator, but...
Well, yeah, you secure the crime scene and evidence, and you gather the people who are involved, and, you don't ship them off secretly to foreign lands before you can talk to them.
Did?
I'm sorry.
Did our government do that?
Yeah.
Did our government do that?
Yes.
Well, I'm saying that is treason then.
Yeah.
Because that was my family members I don't care what our government. I was a soldier. I'm not anti-government. I love my country, but our government is a bunch of nonsense Luciferian worshipers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's not anti-government; it's anti-criminal or anti-corruption. And to see that, I can understand your passion. I mean, I have the same passion, and I didn't lose anybody in the towers, but the lives, all the people that have been affected from across the world to our country, and it's just so sad to see this, just so a few can get more wealthy, get more resources, and gain the world and lose their soul in the end.
Amen. Yeah. That's straight from the words of Jesus. I got one thing for I leave you. I got to be really careful how I say this, but I know of somebody that works with a bunch of lawyers. Are you guys familiar with that World Trade Center fund?
Yes.
You know how much they paid out on it?
No.
All public information. They're waiting for everyone to die, all the first responders. They've only paid the interest. They haven't paid one single dime.
That's okay.
And I'm not yelling at you guys. It's preposterous how nobody's taking all this stuff, rising up and saying, who are you to do this? We are free Christians.
Right.
We have people telling us that they're treasonous.
No,
you have the whole system. I'm sorry, brother.
No, you know, my friend, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
The 9/11 fund. I mean, we've got the lawsuits right now against the Saudis that they're being stymied by the Obama administration. Folks, there are multiple lawsuits by 9/11 family members against the nation of Saudi Arabia, the royal family of Saudi Arabia, that are being stopped by this Justice Department and by the Obama administration. It's crazy. And you're right. The fact that the funds. The interest is just being paid out as opposed to the settlements waiting for these people to die.
One, in fact, was pulling people out of the buildings, and he's dying of cancer now.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it makes you want to cry. I mean, look,
there's so many more first responders who were sick than people who died in the towers that day. It's like I think 30,000, 40,000. And
that's right.
If that doesn't make people rise up, nothing will.
And by the way, you're thinking of Mary Beth Buchanan from the Chong, I believe, U.S. Attorney Mary Beth. Mary Beth.
Didn't she do the time? My mind forms a lot from here to there.
Yes.
She was the same exact lady, right? Isn't that? I mean, I'm going to use my words, but that is completely ridiculous. Putting people. Tommy Chong, the only thing he ever did was mess with a plant that God made. But instead, they're going to worry and let the Bin Laden fly free.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was Operation Pipe Dreams. Hey, yeah, no, seriously, that's what it was called, Operation Pipe Dreams. But yeah, we allowed, or we actually escorted 140 members of the Saudi family out of the United States. 140 Saudi officials.
Yep.
And you know what? Not one.
When all flights were grounded.
And not one was talked to by the FBI.
But, it's all to me, it just feels like the whole Constitution is just tradition now,
That's it.
But Mr. Hag, I love you guys very much. Thank you for taking my calls, kind sirs.
Well, thank you for calling in, Jim. God bless you, my friend.
You're going to be in our prayers.
Indeed, and your cousin as well.
I want to let you guys know you're on my show too right now.
Oh, okay.
Jim,
we're on the same network.
Oh yeah, this is Jim watching for truth.
Okay, Jim. God bless you, man.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Thank you. God bless.
Love you too, man.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm going to be reaching out to you, knowing that it was you that called in. I appreciate the call.
How great is that, right?
Yeah. We got the next caller was Vernon.
Vernon,
been on hold for a long time.
Vernon, what? Are you awake, buddy?
Yes, I'm awoke, and I'm taking it all in, all the callers, and there's so much information, and it's dynamite. Doug and Joe. First of all, God bless everyone in the chat room and to Doug and Joe. And I have to respond to pretty much all the callers. The first call was, his name was John. And when he said those buildings did not come down by fire, I said, thank you very much. There was information that came out in the early days, and, just like this happened, 2001,
right.
And all the conspiracy theories in the world came out, and I myself, among everyone else, I don't want to hear that because, it's just a theory, But the scientific community had came out and said it is impossible for them buildings, for that fuel, that jet fuel. First of all, half the jet fuel was burnt out before it even went into the building, number one. All right? The fuel that was left was impossible for that fuel to heat those steel beams and melt the steel beams like we were told to bring the buildings down.
That
was the scientific community that said that. Try to find that information today.
Yeah, exactly.
Firefighters Magazine also said that no buildings had ever fell due to fire, and that 9/11 was
but you know what, Vernon? The other side's got the best experts that money can buy and say, oh, yeah, it happened that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But there's a lot of questions, though, Doug. Not only the physical, the physical part of it. Well, let me get one more part in there, because there was a video out there that was showing how the buildings were being imploded, and the commentators were saying, listen, and you would hear it go boom, boom.
Right.
Boom. It was a video, stack by stack, okay? And those buildings came down. And like the gentleman say, they were imploded, okay? That's number one. Then let's go on another level. Immediately during 9/11, we were looking for bin Laden. Immediately.
That's right.
Okay? Went right after him. Okay? But then, I'm trying to fast forward because we're running out of time. But
oh, yeah, man.
Okay? But then, in 2007, we have a General Wesley Clark that is giving lectures talking about how in the next 5 years, he was told by the Pentagon, a general in the Pentagon, that in the next 5 years, we're going to take out 5 nations or 5 countries in the Middle East.
That's correct.
Okay, and they listed the countries: Iraq, Yemen, Libya. Okay, Libya, Gaddafi. Okay, and you right on down the line. Now he told that story in 2007, and it was supposed to be a 5-year plan. Here it is, 2012, and in the past 5 years, what did we do? We took out Gaddafi. We changed the regime over in Egypt. We took out, Yemen stepped down, Iraq, and now we're working on Iran and Syria.
Right.
Okay? So all of this was pre-planned from 9/11 up until the day.
Yep.
All of this was pre-planned. But who was it pre-planned by? Okay, you cannot sit there and tell me Al-Qaeda was the masterminds behind all of this.
No, I agree.
So who was? Then, like some people say, well, the federal government. Okay, well, who's in control of the federal government? Because it's not our elected officials. That much I know we can agree on. Okay, so we have to be talking about secret orders and secret societies.
I agree.
Okay, so
right.
Now the bottom line here is all of this from 9/11 until today has been leading up to one thing: the New World Order. The New World Order do not come into do not come into full force. The New World Order is here. It's in control. Okay.
And in past, they've said through various talking heads that they will have a New World Order through consent or through conquest.
Exactly.
And they are choosing the conquest route, as we can see.
Right. And this is the reason why I called, because I know you gentlemen are going to be on at 11 o'clock tomorrow. On Thursday as well.
Right.
But Thursday night, I'm doing my show. Okay, now I have an individual coming in that's going to give lectures on secret orders and secret societies. Now, I know you won't be able to make it. I was hoping that you would, but I'll be sending you the playback of that.
Oh, perfect.
And then maybe I can set up a meeting with you and Doug. And this gentleman here is a Dr. Catlin Williams. He's a professor of theology, and he lectures on secret orders and secret societies. And I would love to get you gentlemen together in the same room.
Oh, I love that.
Okay. But the bottom line, Doug and Joe, is this. As we all know, the Lord Jesus Christ is on his way back, and we're at a war. We have been at a war, a physical war and a spiritual war against the enemy. And the enemy is the ones that's controlling these Luciferian puppets.
And it's truly Luciferian indeed.
Okay? And they got their point where they want to be, and that's all right. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is not my home. I got my eyes on the prize upstairs. Okay?
I'm right there with you, my friend.
So, but again, to all the families, my prayers have always been with you, to the first responders, and to all the fire departments, and, even the volunteer people, because you was given a very raw deal. Michael Moore did a movie how he had to take those that were volunteers over into Cuba to get treated. People that was on their last leg, and this government did nothing.
Yeah, it's shameful how we treated our first responders, our heroes.
Yeah.
Vernon, it really is. But let's hook up. Yeah, I've got to. Well, I'll tell you, that's going to be a great show you're going to have with that theologian. And,
right. And you said that's Thursday?
This is going to be Thursday night. I come on at 9 o'clock. We're going to be calling him for the second hour at 10 o'clock. And okay. I'm going to send you the link now. I'm put the link now into my YouTube video I did for the promo.
Okay.
But I would love to have you, Doug and Joe, along with Pastor Paul and Dr. Catlin Williams in the same conference, on the same show. That would be truly awesome.
Well, we'll definitely see what we can do. Vernon, send that link to us or put it in the description of YouTube. We're going to let you go and try to get one more caller in before the end of the show.
That's beautiful. Look.
Oh, man, Vernon, I'm sorry I cut you off there. I didn't mean to do that. 440, sorry to keep you on hold so long.
Yeah, that's okay. How you guys doing? This is Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul. We got about 2 minutes.
Good to talk to you. Let's
I know, yeah. Well, I started out with a list of things, but I'm going to have to cut it short. You made a statement about books. Could you clarify that for me, Doug? I don't think I quite understood what you meant. In other words...
we don't hawk books. In other words, we don't sell books, but I recommend Crude Politics by Paul Sperry.
Okay. See, because I didn't quite hear the whole thing,
Right.
Or catch the whole thing. I mean, all I heard was, this show and books, and it sounded kind of negative. And I says, wait a minute. I said, that don't sound like them,
Oh, no.
Anyway, in relation to books, I took Red Fog over America, and I PDF'd it. It's available on the site. Now, I moved all of William Carr's work into a folder called WG Carr.
Okay.
90
so
seconds.
There's also one in there about that he wrote. In fact, I think it was the last one, called Satan, Prince of the World.
And that's accessible on your site now as a download?
Yeah, right. They're there. I just I published them today.
Paul, we got about 60 seconds. Look, plug your site where people can get a hold of these works again.
FrontStreetSaloon.com.
Good stuff there, folks. You can download this information.
60 seconds.
Yeah, don't let the name of the site deceive you. Well, it didn't start out to be this type of a site, but I never changed the name. I just left it the same,
Well, of course.
But, in a bar, what do? You put everything on Front Street. So there you go.
Thanks. Hey, going to cut you loose. God bless you, my...
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
All right.
Thanks, folks. Yeah, we're coming up against the last couple seconds of the show.
I want to
remind everyone, tomorrow night, doing a show with Steve Quayle and Henry Groover from 9 to 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You're not going to want to miss. I cannot wait to talk with Mr. Henry Groover. He will be on with Steve Quayle, a regular guest. And if you can, Please donate to this listener-supported broadcast as we continue to try to expand our mission. You have helped us expand our mission.
10 seconds.
And if you can't donate to the show with money, then please keep us in your prayers. Spread the word about the show. God bless you all for helping, for listening, and supporting us. We can't thank you enough. Have a great night.
From the bottom of our hearts, God bless. Good night.
Hope that's coming out of 9/11. And that's what people need to hear. And when you've got that hope, and you've got a confidence and energy to be able to go out and do what you need to do. And for me, my hope